Hopefully we'll see Supervisor Madrone. All right, so welcome to a special meeting of the Board of Supervisors. In accordance with Executive Order AB 361, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors meeting are being held virtually, and you can participate via the Zoom call-in phone number, which is located on your screen and on the front of the agenda. And Nikki, can we please have a roll call?
Absolutely. Supervisor Bohn?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone? Oh, sorry, his computer's not on. Supervisor Wilson?
Yep.
And Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, do we have a flag we can pull it?
We do. Hang on just a second here.
Yeah, Nikki. Oh, there you go.
All right. There you go. We got it. We got doubles. All right. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we have one item on the special meeting that we'll be discussing today. So at this point, we can just move forward with that. And this item comes to us from our CAO's office and was regarding potential changes in Measure S. So can I hand this over to you, CAO Hayes?
Yes, thank you, Chair Bass. As you recall, last week we had a conversation regarding Measure S, the county's local cannabis excise tax, and we were discussing a potential suspension or reduction to those tax assessments on cultivators. Your board directed us to return today with some refined options based on the conversation that took place last week. And so with that, I will throw it off to Tabitha Miller, the Assistant County Administrative Officer / Chief Financial Officer, to present those options to you. And I would just like to say thank you, Tabitha, for all your work in putting this report together in a very compressed timeline. There has been a ton of number crunching and versions of the staff report to be edited, and Tabitha is doing a stellar job at that. So thank you very much, and take it away.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to get started here, please. Bear with me a second. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yep.
Great. So good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. Again, Tabitha Miller, Assistant, Assistant County Administrative Officer, CFO. As we've mentioned, this is a continuation of the item that was discussed on February 1st, seeking direction and creating a program for a cannabis excise tax suspension waiver program. I thought it might be helpful to kind of start with an updated status of the tax year 2020. And again, keep in mind that these are the assessments, the tax assessments that are associated with the calendar year 2020, January through December, but are collected typically during 2021 in March and October in separate payments. So just kind of to remind you of where we were last week, we had a nice little graphic of the revenue, the tax year revenue for from the tax treasurer, tax collector's office that showed that tax year 2020 had $19.4 million in revenue. And you can see at the two column totals at the bottom here, the 10.5 plus the 8.9 equals that 19.4. Just a quick update on something that's happened is within the last month, the total is the same, but the amount owed has dropped by $200,000 and it's moved from the owed to the paid. So we are still seeing some revenue slowly coming in, even though we were able to defer the tax date until May 31st of 2022 for that second 2020 installment. The other thing that I would kind of point out is looking at the percentages in each area. And just a reminder, if you read the staff report, one of the calculations that we use throughout the numbers that we're going to talk about today is a delinquency rate of 31%. And I will be the first one to admit that we don't have a lot of data for calculating this, and we're trying to, really estimate unknowns. We're looking at a market that is new that we're trying to figure out, and figuring out how many of those folks won't be able to pay the tax going forward so that we can adjust our revenues appropriately. What we ended up doing is taking the average of tax year 2019 and tax year 2020. It was 16% in 2019, and it was 47% when I did the calculation a couple weeks ago. It's now 46%, but the average of those two is 31%. Again, I think that there's probably some adjustments that can be made there. It is also in line, if you look at the right-hand side here, 41% paid in full, 31% paid the first installment, but not the second. And this isn't surprising given that, most people would take a tax deferment if they have the opportunity to delay that payment. The one that surprised me a little bit, and I found a little concerning, but it also sort of substantiated that 31% delinquency, is that from 28% of the cultivators, we received no payment for the tax year 2020. So we received no payment in 2021 or even this first month of 2022. And that kind of raises the question that I think is something that we should address today and consider, which is making sure that we kind of understand where those folks have gone, whether or not they're still in operating a legal business or whether they've gone out of business, because those figures are going to be really important, not just in what we're calculating over the next couple of weeks, but 6 months from now when we come back to the board and either are addressing what decision should be made for tax year 2022, or we're evaluating the success or the impact of whatever you put in place today or over the next couple of weeks, understanding sort of who's still in business and how things are operating, and the success and failure of each cultivator is going to be important. So I would throw out that I think we need to have a little bit of accountability or check in on any system that we put in place today. So just kind of following up on some of the difficulties in looking at and projecting the revenues from Measure S. A couple things, as you can see, if you look at the two columns on the right-hand side, we have sort of been all over the place. And the revenue, even if you look at budget to actual, has been all over the place. The GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, sort of gives guidance that you need at least 8 years revenue history to do any real good projections. And here we have a brand new industry. The new legal market there was no history to base comparison off. It's changing rapidly. We are constantly making changes, and even the board has made changes in how the revenue is collected. So for example, in 2019, when you went from collecting during the tax year to collecting in arrears, you can see that impacted the amount that was collected. And then add to the whole thing, trying to calculate a delinquency rate in a rapidly changing market. This happens to be a snapshot of the impacts for tax year 2020. And I wanted, there's two reasons for this. One is that it illustrates some of the buffer that happens when you are straddling, your fiscal year straddles your tax year. So remember that you're collecting in any given fiscal year, you're collecting the second installment of the prior tax year, and then the first installment of the new tax year in a fiscal year. So an action that you take for tax year 21, for example, will impact half of a fiscal year, this current fiscal year 21-22, and half of next year's. The no action is sort of the baseline, and that basically is that you leave everything in place. You have deferred those payments to May 31st, but you keep them due. And you'll see that the estimated actual revenue is $5.2 million. It's the 2.3 that we've collected to date through December 31st, plus 2.9 million that we anticipate, even based on that delinquency rate, collecting from that 8.9 million that's still outstanding for tax year 2020. And the reason for that big difference is that the 31% is applied to the total assessed revenues for that year of 19.4, which is about a $6 million delinquency rate. So, but the point is that you still have some buffer. The other piece that's not calculated into this chart in order to make things comparable is whatever decision the board makes today on tax year 2021, you'll either be increasing that amount by somewhere between 0 or $4.2 million, depending on which scenario you provide us direction on moving. So here we've got, this is really sort of what you're looking for. And this is the meat of what you asked us to bring back. It's a summary of the options that you asked for at the last meeting. Again, just a couple things as far as how we're making our comparisons. We are still using the same $19.9 million in annual revenue as the base for comparison. This was consistent with the figures that we showed you last week, and that is at sort of 100%, all of the permits that are in place now paying. So everything is sort of worked against that. We also are including a 30% delinquency allowance on any of the revisions or the reduced revenue amounts to keep things consistent. Option or number one, which is a version of option one, basically applies 50% to all tiers. And the reason that this is the CAO's recommendation is that it's equitable, again, for all growers. It's easy to apply. It's pretty consistent, and it is easy to measure after the fact. Number two is just a version of option one. It's applying a 75% reduction to all tiers. And again, you can see that the increase in impact goes from 66% to 83%, and again, including that 31% delinquency. Option three is 100%. It's waiving the tax for the tax year 2021. Obviously, there's no revenue coming in for the tax year. It's 100% reduction. And just as a side note, it doesn't include a delinquency allowance because obviously if you're not collecting any revenue, there's no delinquency to be had. Item number four is a version of option two. And this was taking a reduction of 50% for outdoor grows, 25% for mixed cultivation growing, and 0% or no decrease for indoor grows. And you can see that does have the least impact from a financial standpoint of 58% reduction. Number five is just, again, a modified version of that same option two, increasing the reduction for indoor grows to 75%. Mixed would be a 50% reduction, and then you give a 25% reduction to your for your indoor grows, the 75% is for outdoor. And I'm gonna, because I know we have a lot of comments, and I know that the supervisors probably have a lot of questions that we can certainly follow up on. Just a summary here of the CAO's office recommended action. We are recommending no retroactive change for tax year 2020, a 50% reduction in all tiers. And again, that's really based on that ease of application and equity across all growers. And then tax year 2022, and this had been some of the indication that the Board of Supervisors had given us in the last meeting, is to come back in the fall of 2022 and reevaluate the impacts. Take a good look at how these changes have impacted the market and outside impacts have changed the market. The one other thing, and again, I added here, establish and implement procedures for extended delinquencies. One of the things that I think is going to be really important for us to be able to do a good solid evaluation in the fall is to have data on the folks who are opting into the program, those that maybe are not continuing in business, and understanding how these are changing. One of the conversations that happened at the ad hoc committee originally was the idea that we were comparing this assistance to some of the assistance that was provided to businesses during COVID. And I would remind everyone that, all of those federal programs, all of those grants did require some interaction with the entity issuing the deferment or the grant in order to sort of have data to evaluate it. And with that, we will certainly entertain any questions.
All right, and before
I'm going to go ahead and end my
thank you.
sharing.
And before we go to any questions from the board, I do want to remind folks, because we do have a lot who have already that are calling in, to press *9 to raise your hand so we kind of can get a gauge of how many we've got interested in speaking. I suspect if you're watching this, you're probably having an interest in speaking. So it's just really helpful for myself and for the staff to be able to move smoothly through the phone calls. So do we have any questions from the board for Tabitha?
What?
Rex, Supervisor Bohn?
I like Rex.
I know. That's why I call you Supervisor Bohn.
I was that for 55 years. Yeah, do we want to discuss what I mean, I can tell you where I'm landing, or do you guys want to wait and hear public comment? I mean,
well, let's see, since you've asked that of the other board members, anyone's Supervisor Wilson?
Yeah, I don't mind listening to public comment before we dive into some deeper discussion on this.
Okay. However, that doesn't mean that Supervisor Bohn, you can't say where you're kind of looking right now, I wouldn't suspect. Supervisor Madrone, do you have any preference?
Yeah, I hear the public.
Okay. So before we go to the public.
power to the people then.
That's why we're here. So no questions for staff right now at all. All right, well, let's go.
Well, I do have one question. If we go to all those option 1 twice and everything else, if we suspend it, if we have them pay everything that's owed, and this is to Tabitha, if we have them pay everything that's owed, last payment and through May, or if we defer, however we attack that and everything else, this will, if we suspend the next 2 payments, that will be over the time of 2 fiscal years, right?
That is correct.
And then the other thing is, when it says that it's going to affect us by 19.4 million, that's got a lot of pixie dust on it, because we're never going to see those numbers again, right?
I think you're right there. It doesn't, that 19.4 million is the 100% based on the current permits and doesn't take into account any delinquencies. And I think it would be, it would be a false move for us to not assume that we're going to have some folks dropping out.
And over the last 3 years, this very old industry with the new taxes has paid about $43 million.
Yes.
Okay. I'd love to hear from the folks out there.
All right, well, before we go to public comment, thank you everyone for raising their hands. A couple things I'll let people know is we will again be going with 2 minutes. We had a lot of public input last time, and we will continue taking public comment as long as hands are up until noon. If we have that many folks that want to comment, I would request, if folks called last week, we did hear some compelling stories, but if you could try to focus your 2 minutes more on the options that we've been discussing or on our agenda day, that would just make it a little bit easier. I mean, you can say what you want in your 2 minutes, but I would say my preference would be if you could talk about the options that are in front of us, or if you think there's something else that should be done. So with that, when you have 30 seconds left of your 2 minutes, you'll hear this sound. Hopefully you'll hear that sound, and it means you have 30 seconds to wrap up. And at the end of that time, you'll be thanked and your microphone will be muted, and please don't take it personally. It's just the same for everyone. So I'm gonna go through our first several. I see we have 1376 hand was up first. So if you are 1376, press *6 to unmute. Before you unmute, hold on just a moment, 1376. Also wanted to remind people, if you have called in and raised your hand, please turn your volume off on your video feed, because there's a time delay which can be very confusing. So you'll be able to listen to it on the phone once you've called in. I don't want anyone to miss their opportunity to speak. So with that, we will go to 1376 and just press *6 to unmute, and you'll have your 2 minutes. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. My name is David Geyer. Thanks for the chance to address this issue. You have the power to bring relief and more encouraging approach to this very real economic crisis the county faces today. It's very real. My farmer friends couldn't sell much of the crop of 2020 and nothing of the 2021. The cost of production as we know it today won't be covered by the price offered, let alone any profit. I call for reform of this county grow tax. I come from a farming career over 63 years. I've grown heirloom tomatoes that have been shipped around the continent and to Asia. I've grown vegetables and herbs for vitamin companies throughout this country. I've grown in over 10 counties throughout this state and Hawaii. I know Ventura County, where they put up greenhouses every day by the thousands and take them down all the time. We're very handicapped by making anything diverse right now, and the regulation has been crippling, as you understand, for any diversity or any opportunities. We're suffering the dangers of a monoculture. You have to act and save the small family farms that we're famous for. We have more artists per capita living in the state. I speculate we have more small family farms living in the state. You need to protect this unique brand. We're world renowned. I spent 14 years in the wine industry and 10 years in the Kona coffee industry. They grow grapes in every state. They make wine in every state. There are only 2 counties known in the country for premium quality consistently. Your golden goose could have paved this county in funds has been dyed by 1,000 cuts. I've never seen an agriculture economy so mismanaged, so burdened by preconceived notions. Now's the time to act and create some relief. The Trellis program is a great opportunity. I appreciate the chance to speak out. We have to adjust this measure, support a local farming economy. I call for a moratorium and some sort of amnesty as you speak of right now. But I also speak of, I don't see why we have to be burdened by a sales tax, a tax before sales.
Right,
I think it's been inhibiting.
Thank you, David. Sorry, 2 minutes goes fast, but thank you for calling in and weighing in. We know there's a lot of folks today. So next we will have, hold on a second. Nikki, you unmuted somebody I think you unmuted Thomas, but Thomas was not in the lineup yet. Sorry, Thomas.
I didn't know. Yeah, I don't.
That's
Yeah,
bizarre.
I'm
Okay,
muting.
well, so to,
It was 3849 is who I had next.
yeah, I had 38492 and somehow that's really
Not
weird.
sure what happened.
Okay, well, sorry, Thomas, we're going to put you down the list a little bit because we did have 3849 followed by 3556. I have about 4 others that were previous. So if you are 3849, press *6 to unmute and you'll have your 2 minutes. $3849. All right, we are going to go then to 3556 and we'll come back to 3849. So 3556, can you please press *6 to unmute? Welcome, you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, this is Sean Stam. I'm a 2nd generation farmer, the background in engineering, and I chose to come back here and build up my family business. I've been a big part of this whole thing the whole time, and I feel like a lot of this tax was built on false assumptions, and that we all have been sitting on these piles of money from growing in the past. And through this whole thing, it has not been easy trying to build really ecologically sustainable businesses. I don't think any option is going to provide anywhere near the relief that we actually require, but the only one that I think will actually give us a fighting chance is a complete suspension now and moving forward. We don't only need relief locally on this one tax issue. We need our government here to be standing up to the state government and trying to help us get through this and get rid of some of the state things that are holding us down and making it nearly impossible to run a successful business in this legal marketplace. I've done economical planning, I've done budgeting. There's nothing that can prepare you for a 300% decline in market value. We as farmers, we've done everything we possibly can to secure a future for our businesses and our families. And it doesn't even matter, because even if you did everything right this year, there's no way you're not losing lots of money. And just what it takes to run a farm on this level and to grow this high caliber product, is insane. The amount of overhead that we have to come up with just to start the year and get through the year, which most people don't have anywhere near the amount they need to even get started this year, and have employees on workman's comp. And
thank you, Sean, for calling in. Just a reminder to folks, it's a 2-minute time frame, and when you hear the sound of the tone there, you have 30 seconds. We're just trying to be consistent for everyone and to make sure as many people as possible can weigh in on this subject. So we're going to try 3849 again. If you are 3849, can you please press *6 to unmute? Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Polly Kinsinger, and I'm a licensed cultivator and owner of Mama Bear Farms. Thank you so much for the robust conversation last week and for listening to all of the over 60 commenters who unanimously told you that there is community support to give relief to local cultivators through the suspension of the Measure S entitlement fees for the opportunity to cultivate. I hope you can again hear our collective voice today. Personally, I have difficulty paying the over $12,000 that I owe for the October 21 payment, but I understand the fiscal and logistical impossibility of waiving it. I will use funds from an equity line of credit on my home that I am still trying to qualify for in order to pay it. But I beg you to waive the payments for all farmers for the 2022 payments due in March and October of this coming year. We truly do not have it. Cannabis is selling at a loss for me right now, if I can even find a buyer, and it's all going to pay workers who I have been unable to pay for last fall's harvest. Please waive the fees due this coming year and allow us to work with you on a solution that works for the county and the cultivators for the future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pauline. So we will go on now to I say, for those of you at home, just so you know, myself and Nikki, our CEA, our clerk, the names and hands are bouncing all over the place, or the numbers. So if we don't call you as soon as we originally mentioned, it's only because another hand popped up, and for some reason we can't control this. Nikki, any ideas? Let me know if people drop off, okay? Because it's hard to keep an eye on this right now.
I will, yes.
Okay, so let's go. We'll try. Let's see. We're going to go to. Let's do 1541, and just press *6 to unmute, and you have 2 minutes. And thank you for your patience.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, my name is Dave Santamino, Sunrise Mountain Farms. I am calling to say we would appreciate you to extend the deferment of October 2021 taxes until September, suspend Measure S completely, and we would love to come together as we'd love to come together to work a future tax plan that would work for all of us. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, go to 2289. And if you're 2289, press *6 to unmute. Not 2 minutes. Again, if you're, there you go. Please turn off your volume on your video feed if you happen to be listening on that, because there's a time delay. So welcome to 2289.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is Mohammed, the bulk sales manager with Humboldt Farms, and I'm on the HCGA policy committee. Been a resident of Humboldt County for the last 17 years and just watched the cannabis industry through the ebbs and flows. I thank you guys for your consideration. I just want to draw a point to the stark reality of what's going on right now. Being in sales, working with farmers, I get to see the climate and the environment of the market every day, and it's never been as serious as this. So I would urge you to please suspend the measure, and we'll keep it at that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And we're going to go to 3614 next. And if that's you, press *6 to unmute, and then we'll follow that by 1851. So 3614 followed by 1851.
Hello, this is Drew Barber. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, Drew.
Great, thank you so much. Chair and board, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Drew Barber, owner-operator of East Mill Creek Farms and co-founder of Uplift Co-op. In the last 5+ years, we as a society have spent thousands of hours and millions of dollars in an attempt to regulate and control what was a thriving free cannabis market. It's been a tough ride. Despite all these efforts, we've ended up with a dysfunctional regulated market and a highly incentivized illicit and unregulated market. The Humboldt County cultivation community is united, as we heard last week in the over 60 comments. We know and understand our industry, and we have a vision and a plan for success that does right by ecology and our community. To get there, we need to shift away from punitive taxes and rules and regs that cripple business. Cultivators must be fully actualized partners in this course forward for this to work. Ask the board to please hear our unified voice today. We are your constituents. Let's cultivators and decision makers be a unified Humboldt to lead the state to a future of functional cannabis industry. The solution that we need is the 100% deferment.
Are you still there? Did you have more to say?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Drew. All right, so we're now going to go to 1851 followed by 3053. So if you're 1851, there you go. Welcome.
Hi, this is Donald Waterman, and I recently toured Humboldt, many farms, and some of Mendocino County. And I had been kind of steeped in the legends of your area and how great the economy was there. And I just want to urge everyone on both sides here to find a solution that works for everyone and ride out this tide together, because at the end of this is a legendary market that will be a success for all of you if you can all ride it out together. I just interviewed a legacy farmer over the weekend, and his recommendations are in line with a suspension of the late payments, and I believe with no Measure S, but another suggestion was that the first 500 pounds cultivated for all licenses, that there was tax help or waive on that, and that would address a market evenly across many different borders of space and production limit. And I just wanted to point to that and say that please, focus on getting through this together and where the future leads all of you into this wonderful space that it's years and away. You guys just got to make it to it.
All right, thank you, Don. So now we'll go to 3053 followed by 6670. 3053. I know that's you, Thomas.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, Thomas Mulder here. I just want to clarify you can hear me?
Yes, I can, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you for having this agenda item before you to discuss so quickly after the last week's meeting. I know many farmers are in dire situations. You heard lots of stories last week. I'm not going to go into detail on those, but I support the 100% suspension of the 2021 cultivation tax, which would be due here in 2022. It's just one of many, many taxes that us cultivators have to pay. I think also you can realize that through the permitting process, all of these different greenhouses and ancillary buildings, as well as water tanks, are getting taxed on the tax rolls by the county assessor. So it'd be interesting to look at how much increased property values have gone up. So I know it's only 1% of that, but the revenues have been brought in. And one other big point, cannabis is taxed like no other. Just to have a bank account, you have to go through the gnarliest background check ever. And then you're forced to pay about $4,000 a year just to have a bank account so you can pay your taxes without having to drive to Sacramento to pay your employer taxes and your employee taxes. And I know there's many people that would like to talk today, but unfortunately they're busy this morning. But just please hear the calls you heard last week and probably all the emails, and it's the trickle-down effect is real. This is a short-term investment for long-term gains. That's your opportunity in front of you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. So now we'll go to 6670 followed by 5280. So if you're 6670, press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning, Supervisors. Madeline DeLapp, Humboldt County Growers Alliance. Thank you all for your time, attention, and interest in this very important topic. Last week, you heard from more than 60 commenters, and similarly deposited more than 1,000 signatories from local people who signed the petition to suspend Measure S. We asked you to forgive, waive, suspend, and then amend. You heard us, and we heard you, and the needs of the county. And today, come back to the table. Understand that the county is not in a position to forgive the October 21 payment. However, we ask the county further extend the deadline for no late penalties in September 15th for that tax installment. Many within the cannabis industry do not have cash in hand to pay that bill without jeopardizing their ability to run daily operations. And it seems the county is reasonably well positioned to collect its projected $9.2 million in Measure S revenue for the fiscal year because the county already predicted a 50% drop. Therefore, the county can collect nearly all of that revenue from the single October 2021 payment and does not need to bill the 2022 installment. And because we're having this conversation now in February, the county is well prepared and positioned to develop its fiscal budget for 2022-2023 with substantially less projected Measure S revenue. This is why we are asking for full 100% suspension for all tax payments for 2022, no deferral, no fees, and zero tax liability for cultivators. Support having a new conversation at the end of this year about developing a fair and equitable and tax that is responsive to market conditions. We ask our county to make a short-term investment, long-term prosperous future. The county and industry needs time to let the market calibrate in a new equilibrium and realize the fullest potential and are contributing and valued members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madeline. Perfect timing on that too. We'll now go to 5280 followed by 7663. So 5280, press star 6 to unmute. And you'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Lippett. I'm a small outdoor permit holder that is equity certified. And I thank you for your time. I pray for your board that shows compassion for what we need. Our lives depend on it. I don't believe a suspension will work. It's going to take many years for this industry to level out, and we need a complete moratorium, no suspension, no payback on the cultivation tax, especially for these legendary outdoor small farms. We don't get a weekly paycheck for our work, and to have to pay a cultivation tax for working for a year and not being paid for a year is it's going to cripple our business. If you help us get us through these years, you'll benefit and our county will benefit over time. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go on to our next speaker, which is last 4 digits of 7663. Welcome. Oops. There you go. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Selena Rowan. I am the CEO of Midnight Gardens in Benbow. We purchased our small homestead farm in 2021 and we're first-time home buyers. We are requesting a 100% suspension of Measure S in 2022 and no late penalties for 2021 payments. In addition to Measure S, we contributed over $3,000 in fees to Humboldt County this year between planning and building and county business license, which happens to be 10 times more than a standard business license. We paid over $8,000 in county property taxes, which was almost triple what the former owner of this farm paid. Despite these challenges, we are building the internationally recognized Humboldt brand, mitigating our environmental impacts, and building a solid Humboldt County tax base that it can extend into the future. In our first year, 2021, we spent over $100,000 at local Humboldt County businesses in 2021 and over $30,000 on local payroll. This significantly contributes to the local tax revenues. We received third-party certification for our organic practices. We spent $15,000 on water storage, $16,000 on Humboldt County compliance projects with the support of Project Trellis. Thank you. And we also developed sales channels in Los Angeles with values-driven brands and retailers. We're organized and we're creating cooperative models. We're strongly engaged in state activism to remove the final barriers between us and our customers. I know we will succeed with your support. Please suspend 100% of Measure S taxes for 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. So next we're going to have 0834 followed by 6344. So if you're 0834, press *6 to unmute. Right, if you're 0834, hopefully you're hearing us, press *6 to unmute. Okay, so Nikki, we'll come back to that one. Let's go to 6344. If you're 6344, press *6 to unmute. Well, there you go, welcome.
Hi, good morning. This is Carla Knappich with Honeydew Valley Farms. I wanted to echo those before me and state that the only option that will work for our farm and our neighbor farms is 100% suspension of taxes due in 2022, as well as no late payment. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sounds like we can hear everybody.
Someone else jumped in on the line.
Actually, hold on. Go ahead. I'll give you a few more seconds. I'll add some time to you because it was a little confusing where we had somebody popping in. So go ahead, Carla. I'll give you about another 20 seconds extra.
Thank you. In short, please suspend Measure S 100% for all farms, and please have no late payment until September of 2022 for the payment that was due in October. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla. All right, so we're going to go back to 0834. If you were 0834, you can press *6 to unmute. And you'll have 2 minutes. Again, there you go. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. There's a delay. My name's Harry Rose, owner and operator of a small family farm in Bloxburg, Chantrell Hill Farms. We're a legacy brand that has been here creating products for critically ill patients for a couple of decades. And we started in 2015 on the licensure process. It has been extremely debilitating and costly. And just watching all the farmers around me implode is very discouraging. We really need your help in this. And we have come together and we do understand the barriers. We do understand the county needs money to operate this program. But that being said, if there isn't drastic things done right now, you will lose at least a few hundred licenses because we do not have any more operating capital between the environmental impact costs and the licensure at the state level and the local level, along with all the various things that we're required to do and the cultivation tax that's being expected of us and the new regulation changes that have to do with that. We really need a full suspension, if not a revocation of Measure S. And we would love to revisit this and actually come up with something that makes sense for the county as well as the farmers to run the program properly so that we can survive. We definitely need a full deferment from last year's payments because nobody sold any product yet this year. And if they did, it all went to their labor. So again, thank you very much for your time and please help save small family farms.
Great, thank you. Another reminder, I think we just heard about it. If you're watching this on video and you're on a phone, if you have your hand up, turn the audio off on your video feed and just listen through the phone, because there is a time delay. And what happens on the phone is what's happening real time, and the video is a bit delayed. So next we'll go to 7713 followed by 3116. So 7713, press star 6 to unmute.
Hello, this is Brian Roberts.
Welcome.
First, thank you. Measure S is not a tax, it's a permit fee. You charge us by, regardless of what happens in the year, we're charged. If I sell 100 pounds, it's a $100 fee per pound. If I sell 250 pounds, it's a $40 fee. So it's actually a permit fee. But here's outdoor, mixed light, and indoor. Mixed light and indoor is a perpetual growth cycle. Outdoor is a once-a-year cycle. So we have the hardest time to even get our product to market. The fact that Southern California farms are 3 to 5 times the size of ours is killing us. What we need is to brand a product, which is not your problem, that's our problem. Our problem is dealing with the planning department. It's been years to get these small farms permitted, while new cultivation was permitted in instantaneously time, less than a year it took. We need help for the next probably 2 to 3 years until we can get our product branded and on shelves. All retail outlets are owned by venture capitalists. They don't take outdoor product. We are selling nothing right now. If you don't suspend the tax, you will lose all small farms. In the next future, outdoor organic grown stuff will be the highest price in the market. You have to allow us to brand our product. Without that, we will die. Humboldt County will have no legacy farms nor any appellations, because growing indoor or mixed light is no different than growing in Southern California. You need these outdoor small farms, and we are dying by the days. Our only chance for survival is to sell to an outside company. Do you want New Yorkers buying all our farms? They'll take every dollar from this county and take it outside. This county is doomed if you don't suspend this tax. This permit fee. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So next will be 3116 followed by 8497. So if you're 3116, press star 6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much. My name is Shannon Hughes. I am a owner-operator of Full Cup Farmstead out in Willow Creek. Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss this at great lengths. Really, the meeting on Tuesday, that was really nice that you heard all of us. I know today we're talking about these options. I want to make sure that the message is clear. None of us are asking to stop paying our taxes to the county. The issue at hand is the flat rate model has proven to be problematic, and now we're here at a crossroads. Permit and licensing fees are one of the biggest expenses that drastically increases overhead, and without flexibility here, we're now seeing the results. Farmers have reached a tipping point where overhead has now exceeded income. A reduction by only 50% will not provide the level of assistance needed to keep many of our farmers in business, considering that many farmers are struggling to pay last year's taxes. Additionally, the market prices are much lower than 50% of what it was when this rate was established. Right now, farmers need 1 year of relief in order to keep their heads above water and maintain the ability to start paying again in 2023 at a fair rate. Fairness has been a common point of discussion surrounding this issue, and we've established that no other industry has been taxed at such a steep rate in Humboldt County. This new source of county funding has infused millions into the county budget over the past few years. And right now, as our elected Board of Supervisors, you have an opportunity to help keep struggling farmers in business so we can keep this revenue source healthy into the future. Farmers want to support our community. We're part of this community. We need your support now so we can stay in business and continue to contribute to this amazing county that we call home. Please defer the October 21 payment until September of 2022 and suspend payments for 2022. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. Okay. Next, we'll go to 8497, and then we'll go to 2138, whose hand had been up, and then they dropped to the bottom of the screen. So 8437, it's your turn, and then we'll go to 2138. So welcome.
Hello.
Hello, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being on a very great timeline. You guys are making a good effort at this. I really appreciate it. This is Jeff Churchill from Kinsey Ridge Farm, located in Willow Creek, California. I just wanted to say the option for everybody here is obviously if we can muster to pay the October, maybe due in September for the 2021 tax, that would be great. As far as going ahead, 2022 and above, we need to really figure this out. Suspend, and reevaluate. Industry cannot handle what's going on. We pay so many taxes, so many fees, bonds, and we have really taken care of this county for years. Most of us are people who live here. Most of us have paid, and even though there is the air about not paying taxes, a lot of people have donated. A lot of money has gone into this county because of us. We really want to keep this up. We really want it to happen. And I thank you again very much. Have a nice day.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. So 2138. There you go. Press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tom O'Connor. My wife and I operate a small farm, Moon the Stars Farm, just outside of Willow Creek. Just like every other farm in Humboldt County, we are struggling to keep our dreams alive. Today, I ask three simple things of you. One, to give us 100% suspension for Measure S to be paid in 2022. No late payments for October 2021, and to restructure our tax that is fair, equitable, and makes sense. Measure S is not fair and does not make sense. A 50% reduction should not be on the table as an option. And just like I am needing to adjust my business model and my budget due to current market conditions, I ask you to do the same, to readjust your spending and your budget because of the current market conditions and our inability to pay Measure S taxes. Today, I ask you to do what is best for all of us in Humboldt, not just the farmers, and that is suspend Measure S. I live in Humboldt County because of its amazing community and culture. I have faith that we can come together as this community and succeed as this community. Suspending Measure S will only ensure us our success. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to 2641 followed by 7430. So 2641, press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hi, this is Nate Bartel, CEO of Ergo Vita. Thanks for taking the time to hear from all of us. You know, it's in a time when most places the government's working to protect the agricultural communities and commodities that have made them world famous. The farmers of Humboldt seem to be facing punitive tax measures and outrageous licensing fees, environmental fees, and that's on top of the extreme labor and just time-consuming nature of growing extraordinary craft cannabis. Measure S needs to be suspended and revoked indefinitely, and taxes forgiven until a time when the market stabilizes. And at that time, there needs to be an equitable tax plan worked out, because obviously everyone wants to contribute to the community, and no one wants to see this industry just disappear overnight. But that's what's going to happen if nothing changes, and changes fast. Thanks for having Thanks for taking my call. Take care.
All right, thank you for calling in. So next we will go, sorry, I gotta move up to the top of my screen here. 7430, it's Monday. 7430, you're next, and then followed by 5375. 74, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, my name is Jesse Gennaro. I'm the owner of Humboldt 36 Farms. And just two things I wanted to point out. I know we have a ton of farms that have been calling in, but the trickle down effect for the community when farms go out of business, there's also going to be a loss of tax and revenue from businesses not being able to make it because the support from the cannabis farmers aren't there. So it's a bigger picture than just farms going out. Even with the suspension, I feel like we're going to have almost 50% of our farms still go out of business. So I'm all about suspending Measure S, and I don't think we need to ever put it back. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to 5375, and then we'll go to 3364. So 5375, press *6. Welcome.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Lindsay Jones, co-owner and operator of Aloha Humboldt and Willow Creek. Our cannabis farm is around 27,000 square feet, which is just over the average half-acre size of a Humboldt County farm. And I wanted to elaborate on our licensing fees. Our outdoor license to the state is $13,800. Our small mix light is $12,900. Our state water board fees are $750, and then our county cultivation tax is upwards of $30,000, and our Humboldt County business license is $400. Annually, our license and permitting fees are $57,850. That's before any other costs, and not to also mention that we have a excise tax on each pound that we sell at $160. We do not have access to loans. We had no financial COVID relief, and we do not have access to crop loss insurance. In the future, we can discuss the creation of parity and equality across these agricultural sectors, but today we're asking for relief, and this relief should look like deferral of 2021 taxes without late payments, or late fees, excuse me, for payments past due. We need to have 100% suspension of Measure S taxes in 2022 without a tiered structure. And I'd like to just present solutions. Cannabis tourism will bring in incredible revenue to the county. We need to support marketing that's driven by producers. Anything less is unacceptable. We need to have our farmers, small farmers, supported so that we can continue appellation development and continue to bring funds into the county instead of seeing a consolidation of farms that then extract the resources out of the county. So please suspend Measure S and support our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, we will now go to 3364, followed by 5602. Your 3364, press *6 to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Sam Dayton. I'm the owner of Soilscape Solutions, which is a local business that provides products and ancillary services to the cannabis community. We employ 15 employees who are dependent on the revenue that's generated by our company, servicing our local cannabis economy. And I'd like to also reiterate, not only my business that is an ancillary business that directly services the cannabis industry, many of the other businesses in the county of Humboldt are directly impacted by the prosperity of the cannabis economy in Humboldt County. I respectfully ask that you, one, do a 100% suspension of Measure S cannabis taxes to be due and paid in calendar year 2022, which would be option 1, number 3 that you presented at the beginning of this meeting this morning, which would be 100% suspension for all tiers. But ask 2, that no late payment penalty for the October 2021 tax installment for payments received prior to September 15th of this calendar year 2022. And 3, at the end of this year, revisiting a discussion on restructuring a tax that is fair, equitable, responsive to market conditions, and includes a structure that incentivizes environmental stewardship. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for calling in. All right, so next we will be going to 5602, followed by 1104. Press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Matt Kurth, and I own Humboldt Cannabis Tours, and I live in McKinleyville, and our office is based in Old Town Eureka. And I think that the supervisors, there's 3 things that we should do as a county about this tax. First, I think there should be 100% suspension. of Measure S taxes to be paid in 2022 to help the farmers get through this year. And I think as last year's payments, I think there should be no penalty for the October tax for payments received prior to September 15th. And finally, I think in the future, we need to have a talk about either completely getting rid of this tax or moving it away from square footage or something. I think that conversation needs to happen sometime in the near future about totally changing this tax. But for right now, we need to suspend the 2022 taxes and no late payments for last year's taxes. And finally, I'd like to just add a little note of hope. Like we just have to get through this rough patch. And on the other side of this is like a future that a lot of people in the county can agree that we want, of like cannabis tourism, craft cannabis, educating the rest of the world about sustainable cannabis, sustainable lifestyles. There's a beautiful future here for all of us, where a lot of us get what we want, but we have to get through this little rough patch first. And we need the supervisors' help, and we need the community's help, so we can all get through it to a really amazing future for Humboldt County, I hope. Thank you so much for the time. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Matt. Next, we'll go to 1104 and followed by 8751. So if you're 1104, press *6. There you go. You're unmuted. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Samantha Phillips, owner of Mojo Mountain out in Willow Creek. I don't need to recap the same items I spoke on last week, but I do want to make some clarifications to the board as well as the non-cannabis community. License holders get taxed and charged every step of the way. I pay local, state, and federal taxes. I also spend a lot of money on compliance fees to local and state agencies, as well as local industry experts, from attorneys, engineers, local grow stores, and much more. At this point, I have been in this process since 2016 with my property and permit, and I view that as a property right, and I'm here fighting for my rights. I have been left in a very vulnerable position because the county is understaffed and they have not been able to get through this permitting process. Myself and others are in limbo with interim permits 5 years later. We are being grossly overtaxed and overregulated at a time where we simply just don't have to give. We need our county to be the first and the example. We need to defer and suspend Measure S and collectively revisit this taxation in 2023. Also, I hear the board. The problem goes deeper than just at the county level. However, we need you to hear our cries for support and help lift us up and not bring us down. Change starts at the local level. I want to go after the state and change state things as well, but I need my county to support me, my business, and the businesses of others. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Samantha. So next we have 8751 followed by 3766. So 8751, press *6. There you go. Welcome.
Good morning. This is Kaylee Saxon with Forbidden Fruit Farms in Southern Humboldt. I'm going to keep it brief. I just have two asks of you today. A 100% suspension of Measure S cannabis taxes due this year in 2022, and no late payment penalty for the payments that were due in October 2021. We made this choice 5 years ago as farmers to shed illegality and put in the work to be viable legal businesses. And today you have the choice to suspend Measure S, support us, and give our industry the chance to survive. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kaylee. And we go to 3766 followed by 5869. So 3766, press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Daniel Stein. I am the owner, co-owner with my wife of Bryceland Forest Farm down here in Southern Humboldt. And in addition to having a small cannabis farm, we also run a market vegetable farm and have sold produce here in Southern Humboldt for over a decade. And I just wanted to talk about how much the Measure S tax, as well as all of the other permitting and fees associated with becoming legal cannabis businesses, have affected our other business, as well as how much we've seen the change in the community as less money is flowing through the community and businesses are failing, not being able to pay all their taxes and stay in business. I feel like the county is helping to kill the proverbial golden goose that cannabis businesses have been and can continue to be the lifeblood of the economy in the rural areas of Humboldt County. And if we can get a full suspension of the Measure S tax, it helps to keep that lifeblood alive so that our economy can thrive in the long run instead of just supporting the budget in the short run. We've seen a reduction in the business at the farmers markets that we sell at. We've seen a reduction in the business for our produce sales overall, and we've struggled to keep the cannabis farm alive. And in the past, it has been able to help support our vegetable farm to provide the service of growing food for the rest of for our county. And well, I'm asking the Board of Supervisors to please suspend the Measure S tax. It doesn't reflect how the rest of agriculture is permitted and taxed. And
Thank you, Daniel. Sorry, those 2 minutes go quickly, but thank you. Next we have 5869 followed by 8358. So 5869, just press *6 to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, my name is Misha Vandal. I'm the owner and operator of Above Cannabis, Lucy Gulch Farms. I would like to plead for the supervisors to suspend Measure S entirely and revisit a new way to tax and regulate this business. To date, we have spent over $150,000 in Measure S taxes alone since becoming permitted in 2018. We were retroactively taxed for 2017 under the compliance measures being implemented by the county from 2015. We would like to continue to farm in Humboldt County, but given the current landscape, it's not looking very good, and I don't see a way forward without a complete suspension. Otherwise, we will be forced to suspend operations and lay off all of our employees and essentially shut down. Thank you for hearing me out. Bye.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll go to 8358. So if you're 8358, where'd they go? *6, there you go, welcome.
Hi, thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak. My name is Natalie Ferris, and I am a co-owner with Sam Dayton, who you heard earlier from Soilscape Solutions. We employ over 15 employees and are dependent on this industry, not only for business and our income, but for our employees' income, as well as a vast majority of in this community. They depend on the economic prosperity of the cannabis industry. We respectively ask at this time to the board for a 100% suspension for Measure S cannabis taxes due to be paid in 2022. No late payment penalty for the October 2021 tax installment for payments received prior to September 15th, 2022. And at the end of 2022, revisiting a discussion on restructuring a tax that is fair, equitable, and responsive to market conditions, and includes a structure that incentivizes environmental stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. So Nikki, we're going to go to 4988, who was next in the queue, but their hand somehow dropped at the end of the queue. So,
all righty.
Or no worries. Yeah, 4988. Press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Britt Massaro. I'm a current owner of a cannabis farm, Mamba Humboldt Logistics in Dinsmore, California, and I also represent Humboldt Logistics, where I'm the owner of a compliance company for 45 direct farms in Holmes Flat, Arcata, Eastern and Southern Humboldt. There's an indefinite statement saying that we will have multiple farms going out of business this year. Instead of legalization bringing our community together, we have divided our cultivators, some who push in people's faces that they have no problem selling their cannabis right now, and mocking everyone on this call, stating that if you don't grow, quote unquote, the fire, it's not true craft cannabis. It's pretty disgusting the way that this has been implemented, with more than half of the states that are legal in the United States already implementing social equity programs and having successful programs. We need to please suspend Measure S until 2024 and come back to the drawing board and focus on how to be the next true Napa Valley of California cannabis. We don't have much more time. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Great, thank you, Britt. We'll go now to 5141 followed by 2877. So if you're 5141, just press *6 to unmute and you'll have 2 minutes. Welcome. Oops, they were unmuted. Press *6 to unmute. There you go. Welcome.
Yeah, this is Nick Erickson with Full Moon Farms. Thank you again for listening to all of us on another marathon day. The industry woes do go well beyond the Measure S cultivation tax. It's been a death by 1,000 cuts. However, a cultivation tax is unprecedented in any other agricultural industry. We are a struggling community looking to pay our fair share in taxes and not to be punished and forced to pay above and beyond a normal taxation. As it sits today, and with the current market crash, farms are not making much in sales. There's very little to no revenue coming in. They simply do not have the money to pay right now. We need a full suspension of the Measure S tax so we can regroup and work with you, the board, on a compromise that works for everybody. It works for all of us as a community, and it reflects the new state of the market and where prices are at. So I'm asking you today to please suspend Measure S. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So now we're going to go to, let's see, where do we go here? 2877 followed by 7884. 2877, press *6 to unmute, and there you go. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Tyler Saphir with Saphir Family Farms. I'm a second generation cannabis grower. We need Measure S to be suspended for Humboldt County farms to survive in this current economy. The October payments will be difficult, but it may be possible for us. But if any of the taxes continue into this year, we are going to see a mass exodus of farmers from Humboldt County and a collapse that will be unprecedented. An incentive structure, while we would be interested in talking about it, I don't think is going to work when no one has capital to invest in new infrastructure. For now, we need relief. We need support from the supervisors. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Tyler. So we're going to go to 7884 followed by 6202. So press *6 to unmute for 7884. Welcome.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Mike Gordon from Fibonacci Management in Hydesville. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again for prioritizing this issue, and thank you staff for working diligently to prepare for today's discussion. One thing that I found that was vitally missing in the staff report are sample income statements from different size farms showing the financial impacts of what is happening in our businesses. What those statements would show is that sales minus fixed and variable costs are no longer sustainable for Humboldt farms of all sizes. It is not only the fact that wholesale prices have dropped 60 to 70%, but the lack of sales at the scale of previous years has crippled our ability to pay costs as well. We need sustainable tax relief for all farms, regardless of size, as well as some time to find out what the future market can sustain. I understand the county needs to balance their 2020 tax year, and I agree that the second installment, which was so graciously deferred, should be paid. But please do not penalize businesses that cannot make this payment immediately. Let's treat this issue with compassion to create additional deferments and payment plans that are sustainable. Next, 2021 year needs at 100%. The bottom dropped out so quickly in our market, and now there is no money left to pay these installments. As for 2022, we all hope this year will be better than last. And since these payments won't be due until next year, let's not be hasty in making any decisions as of yet. But let's keep this conversation going so that your board can continually know the state of our industry. We are all in this together. And please remember that what is ultimately good for the goose is good for the gander. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mike. So now we'll go to 6202 followed by 0709. 6202, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi. Hello, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for allowing me the time today to speak. My name is Robert Bogdasaryan. I'm not a Humboldt County resident, though the fact that I'm a third party in this situation should add perspective and help the board understand the reach of this issue. I'm someone who, after reading into the situation of how Humboldt Measure S tax is threatening Humboldt County farmers' livelihoods, was blown away at the intolerance, inequity, and unsustainability of the current excise tax, which is affecting a community of people who have only helped build up Humboldt to the stellar area it is today. I believe it is moral and just to have not 50% reduction, but 100% suspension of Measure S taxes due in 2022 for Humboldt County's cannabis farmers, and no late payment penalty for the October 2021 tax installment for payments received before September 15, 2022 for the same party. Reasons for this include, while other sectors of agriculture receive government subsidies and support, cannabis farmers pay special local, state, and federal taxes and fees while simultaneously being denied access to basic business services like banking, insurance, or PPP loans. I understand there's still a prohibition-era stigma around cannabis. However, this treatment toward our legal cannabis farmers is unjust. Long-term preserving Humboldt County's world-renowned cannabis culture means normalizing cannabis as agriculture and treating cannabis businesses like any other legal business. My final reason focuses on the credibility of Humboldt County's cannabis farmers' character. Humboldt cannabis farmers are now struggling to keep their businesses operational in May because of Humboldt's current Measure S tax. We're the first ones to stand up and volunteer to contribute money for their community centers and school in the past, whenever it was needed. This situation is not fair for these farmers who have sacrificed for their county. There's a multitude of reasons why the Measure S tax is unfair. These are only two. During this suspension should be revisited as well as this suspension should be revisited by the local community and governments who should come together through public process to restructure.
Thank you. Sorry, those 2 minutes go fast. But the great thing is we're getting a lot of comments today, so it's giving room for others. So we'll go to 0709 followed by 2223. You're 0709. You are unmuted. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. My name is Bruce Ayers of Southern Humboldt Concentrate. I would just like to thank the Board of Supervisors for entertaining the idea of a full suspension of Measure S. I would like to point out a scenario that I saw play out in the Ferndale area, dairy farmers. They pretty much had a dairy apocalypse, and organic A2 milk had a price reduction somewhat similar to what we're seeing here in the cannabis industry. The 22 largest dairy farmer families in Ferndale were approached by their distributor or buyer of their milk and told that the market had bottomed out and they would essentially need to sell their milk almost at the price of what non-organic milk is sold at. And I could only imagine how, fortunately enough, most of those families were able to make it through and are still in operation today. But I could only imagine where they would be at right now if, for instance, they had a $2 or $1 a square foot tax on their farms every year prior to producing the milk. They would, I think for sure, 100% be out of business. And so with the reduction in price in the cannabis industry, what a lot of farmers are looking at in the future is margins and lifestyles of that of like a dairy farmer.
You're not wealthy. You're not rich. My son's gone to school in Ferndale now for 2 years. We're from Southern Humboldt. I have friends that are dairy farmers, and I know their lifestyles. It's not a big, huge moneymaker. And that's essentially what we're possibly looking at cannabis becoming to, is something where you pay your bills, you have a good lifestyle, there's food on the table, but there aren't lavish vacations, new trucks, none of that.
Thank you very much for calling in. All right, so now we're gonna go to 2223 followed by 2624. So 2223, press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Good morning. This is Craig Johnson from Southern Humboldt, Alpenglow Farms. And I'm calling in today because I'm also representing 3 other farms. One out in Palo Verde, one up in Orleans, and one in Redwood Valley. And I say this because they don't get signal. They're in such a remote location. From one of those farms to the other is about a 5-hour drive. Where else can we sustain businesses and produce an income and tax trickle down on any capacity without cannabis? We've listened to all of you. We've come to a conclusion that we will pay our October. We need you to suspend Measure S for 2022, and we'll come back and revisit if we can see market conditions have changed. You've heard from all these calls last week and this week. We have such a passion for this plant, people, and place we call Humboldt. We are Humboldt. Please, please listen to our words. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig. So our next speaker is 2624 followed by 2401. So 2624, press *6 to unmute. All right, just a reminder for folks, if you're on the phone, turn your volume off your video feed because it will, whoops, my time's out. It'll confuse you on what time when we call your, you'll be time delay, put it that way. So hopefully by now, 2624 heard their number and press *6 to unmute. And if you're not there, we'll just come back. I'm not seeing that. So Nikki, let's go to 2401 and we'll go back to the other one. So if you're 2401, press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm a cannabis farmer, a mother, an HSU graduate, and a victim of the war on drugs. I'm calling today because we need immediate relief, or the vast majority of us will go out of business and lose our farms and in some cases our homes. I've invested my entire life savings into becoming legal. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting fees, application fees, biological surveys, road assessments, 3-acre conversion evaluations, grading surveys, archaeological reports, compliance work for CDFW and the Water Board. The list goes on and on. The county and state have effectively extracted every last drop of profit out of us. Not waiving these taxes like the state is currently doing would be the final death blow to this community. These are costs that those operating in the black market never had to pay. To not support licensed farmers after we have done everything asked of us by the county and state is unconscionable. We pour millions of dollars into this community. Here is a shortened list of businesses that essentially every farmer gives substantial amounts of money to every year. Sequoia Gas, Renner, Pearson's, Miller Farms, Schmidbauer, the Mill Yard, staffing agencies, the myriad of consulting firms, the many grower supply stores, local contractors. We pay tens of thousands of dollars to CDFW, the Water Board, the Building Department, Humboldt County Tax Collector. We have state license fees, cultivation taxes, county taxes, increased property taxes. We essentially pay taxes on our taxes. Not suspending Measure S will have catastrophic effects on Humboldt County, and you will not receive the taxes either way if all the farmers go out of business. This is our livelihood. There's a chance that many of us will be forced to return to the black market for our survival. This will create more of a social impact for the county than waiving the taxes will have. Suspending Measure S would send a clear message to the state that you stand in solidarity with farmers and that the whole industry needs to be restructured.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for calling in. So we're going to go back to try 2624 again. If you're there, press *6 to unmute. And just a reminder to people, it's 2 minutes, and it's a hard stop on that. So 2624, are you there? All right, well, we're going to move on to 1591. So 1591, please press *6 to unmute. I seem to recall this number actually had a little problem unmuting last week, but perfect this week. Welcome.
Hi, this is Andeline Roy with Dewpoint. I am a second-generation farmer in Honeydew, and I would like to request the Board of Supervisors to 100% suspend all Measure S taxes for 2022. I would like to encourage them and the county to work with farmers for the October 2021 payments and establish a fair payment plan process for farmers. I have a lot more I want to say, but I just encourage the Board of Supervisors to work with us as partners. Right now, Dewpoint is doing all things necessary to ensure that our business will survive, and we're asking for your support. We need your support. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Amberlynn. All right, so before we ask 2624 to unmute again, but if you're listening, please do press *6 to unmute. We only have another 7 hands in the queue, so if you have not raised your hand to speak and you know you want to talk today, please press *9 now, just because it makes it easier for us to keep track of who still needs to talk. So 2624, hopefully you're there. Press *6 to unmute, and if not, we'll just move this person to the end of the list until we can connect with them. Right, I'm not seeing anything unmute. So we will come back in a while to 2624. We'll move on to 9493, followed by 7354. So if you are 9493, press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Dylan Mattoll. I'm a second-generation Humboldt County resident and farmer in Honeydew, California. My wife and I own together solely. We own Mattoll Valley Sun-Grown. I want to thank you, supervisors. I think I've communicated I've had communication with almost all of you. I especially would like to thank Supervisor Rex and Madrone. You've given this an incredible amount of time. You've answered my calls and emails, and you've listened, and I appreciate that. I also would like to thank my fellow farmers. This has been an impressive call, and we are very unified, and I would like to point out that we as farmers are as diverse as you as a board. We come from all walks of life. We're first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation Humboldt, and we're all asking you for this tax relief together without difference to farm size, and I think that's a powerful message. I also would like to note that I have not seen a single article or news story or heard a single call in support of this tax. 100% across the board, I've been hearing support of suspension. And I'd also like to point out that there is hope. We are working. We are unified as an industry, and we're working on appellations and co-ops. And with this tax relief, we will survive, and we will carry on and continue to flood this economy with our taxes, with our local taxes, our income tax, or our property taxes, and all of the things we've been doing for many years. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, And again, full suspension, 100% across the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dylan. We're going to move on to 7354, followed by 9449. And star 6 to unmute. Looks like you're ready to go.
Hi, my name is Luke Besmer. I am a concerned citizen and a local business owner. From what I see, Measure S simply sets up the industry for failure. The high costs that Humboldt farmers incur make fair competition impossible. This current tax system is not good for business. If the county supervisors want a thriving economy, they need to help by leveling the playing field. Suspending and modifying the tax system is the only option to move forward in such a way that benefits not only these growers, but every single other person in this community. Save cannabis revenue, suspend and modify the tax. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll now go to 9449, followed by 7441. So 9449, just press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Oh, hi, this is Nicole. I don't have a permitted farm either. I'm just a concerned citizen as well, and a mother watching my community get decimated after 5 years of policies that essentially just recriminalized farmers, cannabis farmers. And today I just want to mention, I think that this conversation should really focus on an incredible opportunity before us to level the playing field, address the disparity between small and large farms, and also possibly an opportunity to correct the acre cap loss that we had in the last few days of Prop 64. I personally don't actually think it's appropriate for everyone to have their taxes cut, like Rolling Meadow Ranch. I think they should pay full price, and other large operators like that. I think relief should be given across the board, however, to small farmers, which are on acre and under, and those that are sun-grown outdoor. Though I do think a relief should be given to mixed light, given the industry conditions this year. But generally, I think that the tax should be completely suspended, and definitely until further notice, on all outdoor 1 acre or less farms. And I also want to remind folks of the history of this tax, and mostly our policymakers and representatives. You know, I helped Ed Denson on the Measure S lawsuit against the county on behalf of farmers, and we won. And our representatives caused so much harm with those illegal changes. It cut out a lot of small farmers that weren't able to proceed, who paid a tax just for the privilege of having a piece of paper in some cases. And, you know, again, small farmers have been disenfranchised over and over and over again, and they can't take those hits as much as the big farms. And what is our brand and our legacy about anyway? We're sun-grown, outdoor.
Thank you very much for calling in. Just a reminder, it's 2 minutes and time does go by fast, so we can get more commenters to comment. So now we'll go to 7441, and that'll be followed by 4509. So 7441, press star 6 to unmute.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Supervisors. This is Ronzo from 36 Works LLC. You know, it's getting pretty ugly out here, as you can tell. I mean, me and Bigfoot are down to drinking natty ice up here on the hill. But all jokes aside, you know, I started out with 3 cultivation licenses from the state this year. I'm down to 1. I applied for Project Trellis so we can afford to pay for our taxes this year, and we've yet to hear back. So, you know, we're bleeding like everybody else. Just want to be able to survive. You know, my wife and I went to jail in 2013. We went through a lengthy process and spent thousands of dollars to get to where we're at. You know, I was a logger for 15 years. I watched that industry go down the toilet. Now we're watching another one slowly disappearing, and it's a real shame. I know you're intelligent and you know what to do. Just do what needs to be done so we can all keep breathing and at least move forward. I appreciate your time, and thank you so much. And I have faith in our supervisors to do what's right. God bless Humboldt.
Great, thank you. So next we'll go to 4509. Oops. Yeah, I have 4509.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Hang on, I'm looking.
Are they on the bottom? Did they flip down at the bottom? Well, we're trying to find somebody that's disappeared from the screen.
I do not. I don't see them.
So, well, we'll look for them. In the meantime, we'll go to 3018 followed by 8496. And if you're 3018, press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Tina Gordon, and I'm the owner and founder of Moonmade Farms from Palo Verde in southern Humboldt County. And I thank you, supervisors, for your time and your service. We all understand that Humboldt County is known the world over as the epicenter of quality cannabis with great influence on this historical transition, during which time cannabis is having a global revolution. I believe as a community, we can overcome the challenges facing this historical transition to ensure community and cultural preservation and growth if we do this together. I've been in the transition process since 2015, and I looked back over a letter I wrote in 2016, asking the Board of Supervisors not to implement the Measure S tax. You see, no other crop in California is singled out in this manner and subjected to its own special tax by a county. And like any other agricultural crop, cannabis is subject to seasonal variations in production that affect yield. As a finished product, cannabis flower is a perishable good, and its value is based upon market fluctuations. So the current Measure S tax structure, it's a fixed rate fee. It's a square footage tax, which is simply not sustainable. In order to move forward with the county in partnership, we do support paying the deferred 2021 tax, and we would like to request a payment plan as we may not be able to pay this until September. And then beyond that, we request a full suspension of the Measure S tax until it can be restructured. Thank you for your time. The decision you make today will make history.
Thank you, Tina. Looks like 4509 popped back on the screen. So if you're 4509, just press *6 to unmute.
Yeah, good morning, supervisors. This is Sequoia Hudson. I appreciate the time and all of your effort being put into considering this important topic today. I am a small farmer from eastern Humboldt County. Really quickly, I just want to say that I am experiencing what you are hearing today from all the other farmers of the county and support what they're saying to defer the 2020 tax that was due in 2021 with no penalties for fear of liens on our property, and to suspend the Measure S tax from 2021 that's due in 2022, and to come back to the table to figure out a solution moving forward for this tax. What I really want to come back around right now to talk about setting the farm aside is my position as the CEO of the Humboldt Sun Growers Guild, an Arcata-based company that provides support services to many of these farmers and other businesses in the area, and just let you know how the trickle-down effect is affecting all of us, cannabis ancillary businesses and other businesses in the area alike. We provide jobs that are very important for the stabilization of the economy locally, local people, local money, keep it local. And those jobs are dwindling. I'm seeing businesses go out of business. I'm seeing business not just going out of business, relocating. I'm seeing people not just at our company, but other companies are getting laid off. And it's because our farmers don't have any money to pay for the services that they need. Many farmers have product available to be processed and packaged and put into the market, and they have no money to pay for the services in order to get their products to market. And this tax money, if they're able to figure out some way to have some money to pay for some of these services to get their product to market, could potentially be the money in their pocket that they need to get that done to even stay alive. And so I just want to reiterate the importance of our farmers for the other businesses in the area to also remain operating, because they're struggling and they need your support. And there is light at the end of the tunnel, as many have mentioned. We're all looking forward to reaching that light. And I appreciate you figuring out solutions and ways that you can support our farmers to stay here operating into the future and beyond. Thank you.
Next, we're going to go to 8496, followed by 6447. So 8496, press *6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is Laura Lassiter with the Southern Humboldt Business and Visitor Bureau. Thank you for your time here today. The cannabis industry is, hold on just a second. Okay, as we all know, Humboldt is known worldwide for the giant redwoods and its pristine Pacific coast and world-renowned legendary Humboldt cannabis. Along with our natural resources, cannabis tourism is on the rise and here to stay. The Humboldt craft legacy farmers hold the key to the story that many visitors in the world want to hear. But these legacy farmers that hold the key to our stories are facing extinction. What makes Humboldt unique, along with its natural resources, is our history, our story, our legacy. These legacy cannabis stories are vital key to the puzzle of the history of Humboldt cannabis. Visitors and consumers want to hear why they should choose Humboldt cannabis at their local dispensaries. These legacy stories and traditions of environmental stewardship tell the consumer why Humboldt cannabis is the best for the best reasons. The consumer needs to know why they need to meet their farmer. So let's help make this possible by making sure the farmer makes it through this transition and not only survives, but thrives. And as in decades past, the Humboldt cannabis farmer will continue to add to the overall health of the Humboldt economy. So we're asking for today is 100% suspension. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Laura. So next we'll go to 6447, followed by 9687. Welcome, 6447.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome, and you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. I just pulled off on the side of the highway, but my name's Johnny Casali with Huckleberry Hill Farms. I'm in support 100% for the suspension of Measure S. And I just wanted to kind of just talk to you person to person. And, Mike Wilson said something the other day that I thought about for the last few days, and that was that, suspending Measure S completely wasn't going to be fair to his constituents that ran businesses up there. And really, I think what's not known to a lot of those business owners and maybe to Mike also is that, what we're subject to with, having to comply with 280E and the banking and all the other different taxes is not like a normal business. We've been really subjected to some unfair taxation, unfair rules and regulations, but we all love what we do and we all really want to participate. Another thing, so I think he should really educate them and really take into consideration that when he's voting today. And Rex mentioned something about the state and really that being the problem with their cultivation tax. And I agree with him. But I also agree that Measure S is the beginning step. And having talked to Nicole Elliott last couple days ago, she's really taking a look, and she even might be on this call, what we do today, because we have so many amazing small craft sun-grown farmers that help create a multi-billion-dollar industry here in California. And so what we do today, what you do today will send a direct message to Nicole Elliott, Gavin Newsom, to react and to take action. If we do nothing, they will do nothing, and we will be done. So I please urge you, this is just the beginning of what we're about to experience. It's going to get far worse, and we need your help. Thank you very much. This is Johnny, Huckleberry Hill Farms. It's about all of us, not one of us.
Right. Thank you, John. So next we've got 9687, followed by 0069. 9687. Press star 6. There you go. Welcome.
Good morning. Hello, this is Kelly Flores with Margaret Advisors. Last week I submitted an industry report to the board to provide some context with what these farmers are dealing with, and essentially it's the entry of big agriculture into the industry and contributing to the market crash. Last year, 86% of the 1,400 small licenses that were issued to about 15 farms. So it's a really dire challenge that these folks are dealing with. Now, in looking at the County Administrative Office staff report, page 6 assumes that farms over 10,000 square feet are not being impacted the same as smaller farms, and that is simply not true. A farm with 15 or 20,000 square feet is struggling just as much as their neighbors. You simply cannot rely on Measure S taxes at any level. To do so will result in additional debt for the county. I also wanted to mention on page 5, they talk about implementing a waiver program. And we ask that you do not impose an application and review process. County staff and the farmers do not need additional workload to navigate. This really needs to be a suspension program across the board until the market stabilizes. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Next we'll go to 0069 followed by 2710. 0069, just press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Melanie Johnson, Alpenglow Farms, Humboldt County resident. I'm super grateful and super thankful for today's special meeting. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to this community that the 4 of you are not only willing to listen, but that you're really listening and you're taking our words and feelings seriously. I can give you fancy titles, CEO, CFO, president, co-founder, co-owner, but at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, it's just me and my family on our homestead. I respectfully ask that you vote to save family farms and that you leave no family behind, regardless of farm size or license type. And I feel the best way that this is possible is through the full suspension of the Measure S tax for 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. So we have 2710 followed by 2710 followed by 0089. My eyes are getting bad. So 2710, welcome. Looks like you're unmuted.
Hi, this is Rose Moberly from Huckleberry Hill Farms in Southern Humboldt. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome, Rose.
Thank you. I just really wanted to thank you all. I think that hearing from all of these small family farms has been really, really impactful. And I just want to, echo that they are not crying wolf. I am genuinely looking forward to waking up in the morning when we can call our Board of Supervisors our champion. I cannot wait to look back on the day, to be able to look and speak about the day that our leaders supported us through the tough times, ensuring that our future support is going to be there for you as well. Thank you for considering suspending Measure S. Thank you for considering suspending Measure S for not 1, but maybe 2 years until we can think of a better plan. Thank you so much for hearing us today.
Thank you, Rose. All right, if you don't have your hand up yet and you still wish to speak and you're not in the queue, press *9 so that we know how many folks are left. Right now there was only 4 showing, so if you are wanting to speak, thank you. I see a few more going up. All right, so we'll go to 0089 will be our next one, and just press *6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, thank you for taking all this time to consider cannabis farmers. My name is Linda Cesaretti, and my husband and I have a small family farm in the Fortuna area, ABC Farms. Our kids are 5th generation in Humboldt County. And I just want to reiterate what everyone has said, 100% of the speakers, call-in speakers today. Cannabis farmers need help. I believe we can succeed with a just, fair, and equitable tax structure. However, that's not the case. Please suspend Measure S 100%. no late payment for October 2021 and restructure this. Please work with us to keep Humboldt cannabis alive and thriving. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in. So I have 4254, which is Lele, I believe, but then you dropped off the screen, but now you're back. So 4254, press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Thank you, Virginia, for that. Thank you, board, for all this time. And it is amazing hearing everybody come to the table fairly unified. I've already emailed you my suggestions and had conversations around Measure F. What I want to do is ask two things of you further. One, in the beginning of this conversation, what gave us so much power as a community is that you, as the Board of Supervisors, sat down with us in our state legislatures to have conversations. And I would like to ask all of you to get engaged and lobby for our community at not just a state level, but at a national level, because that is vital to what all these conversations are about. And then two, I would like to ask that as you take all these Measure S conversations into consideration, that you look into the funds that you have mentioned a few times that are available to communities impacted by drug war and create tax credits to help everyone get through these tough times, because there is a lot of money out there, and I think we can pull more funds in to support our farmers. And I just want to thank you and the community again for these conversations. It's one of the reasons I think we're so great.
Thank you, Lele. Also, I wanted to say now we only have 3 hands up, so if you're still wanting to talk, just a quick reminder. So we're going to go to 3884 followed by 6023. So 3884, press *6 to unmute. And you there? Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sam De La Paz. I work with the 421 Group. We're a California-based cannabis consultancy based out of Sonoma County. And I also am vice president of the Hessel Farmers Grange here in Sebastopol, the first cannabis and hemp farmers grange in the U.S., actually. But I also sit as regional chair on the regional council of the Origins Council. And I just want to convey that, that I think it's imperative that our counties continue to stand up in support of alleviating the burden of taxes. It's literally squelching out our entire small farming community. And I know that we need tax revenues coming in, and I know that some things are dependent on the tax revenues, and we're going to see that at the state level as we push on the state as well. But we need support, as Lele just stated, from Humboldt County, from all of our counties, to push back on the state, to push, to represent our producing regions, our legacy producing regions, and the culture of cannabis in California. And we really need to embrace it. Right now, we struggle with a very prohibitionary approach from pretty much all systems in cannabis. Regulatory, taxation, enforcement, all of this. And all that's going to do is further drive the illicit market underground and basically eliminate trust between operators and policymakers. So I would just like to voice my support for all of the small farmers that are struggling there in Humboldt County. I want to voice the imperative precipice that we've reached here, and really emphasize that we need tax relief, we need tax support, we need support from you as a county at the state level to push back on reform there as well. And we need to all work together to find solutions that are conducive to everyone's survival. And I just want to see these producing regions.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry, 2 minutes goes quickly. Trying to be consistent here. All right, so this is the last mention. I'll say we only have a few more hands went up. If you want to speak, you're going to run out of options shortly. So I suggest you get your hands up before this next speaker is finished. And that next speaker is 6023. If that's you, press *6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, I work for Ronzo Matson, and I just wanted to add, it'd be really great if you guys suspended Measure S at least for a year to give us a fighting chance. Would really like to keep my job. And that is all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Short and simple and to the point. I appreciate that. Let's see, next we'll go to 9805, followed by 1214.
Hi, my name is Lauren Kurtz, and I'm a co-owner of Humboldt Cannabis Tours. And I'd like to voice my support for the growers in Humboldt County. And the three requests that everybody's making today, I'd like to request that there be 100% suspension of Measure S for 2022. I request that there be no late payment penalty for the October 2021 tax installment for growers, and that we revisit this discussion at the end of 22, to make it work for everybody, for growers and, for the county. And thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you for calling in. We're on a second to last speaker, 1214. If that's you, press *6 to unmute. Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Isaiah O'Donnell. I'm the bulk flower sales manager for Bear Extraction in Arcata. I want to give a little history on Measure S. Measure S was a compromise that the cannabis community made with the county during the early days of regulation with CCVH. And you asked us to have the courage to get behind something that was not going to be liked by the industry. There's definitely this notion that cannabis farmers have not paid their fair share of taxes, which is entirely untrue. But I ask you guys to have the same courage that you asked of us and do the only sensible thing, which is suspend Measure S. But I ask you to go further and take that message to the state. And just like early on, the state is watching us, as Johnny said. They're looking to see what Humboldt does, and it's going to have a ripple effect. And if we're going to ask the state to make some compromises in the tax structure, it has to start at home. It has to start with us. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Isaiah. Now it looks like we're on the next to last unless more hands come up. 0444, press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello. This is Eric Walls. I'm the owner of several farms in Humboldt County. I would just like to say that I am in support of full suspending Measure S. I don't think there should be any, leniencies to any square footage at all. Just any farm in Humboldt County, no taxes, at least for the time being. And I just like to say, just kind of to be open with you guys, it's hard to go to sleep at night. It's hard to wake up in the morning. And I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that. And I'll be, I feel like I'm one of the more successful farms right now. I don't have a lot of the problems a lot of these other people are having when I talk to them, and my heart goes out to them. And, we're here to talk to you guys today. I think it's kind of been echoed in these last few statements that we're not done. We want to take this to the state as well and tell them that we're hurting. And I think it's kind of wrong what the state has done to you guys as well, and Humboldt County, by allowing just unlimited cultivation throughout California when Humboldt County was trying to slowly build out a robust business model. And it's terrible. So I don't think there should be any late payments, no square footage requirement, no, nothing. Just alleviate it. Save the farmers. Let them go to sleep at night. Let them wake up in the morning, knowing that they can go to work the next day. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And 0444. Oops, wait a minute. No, 6298 is our final speaker, unless somebody calls in before then or raises their hand. But 6298, you have 2 minutes, and welcome.
Hi there. My name is Tom Himes. I'm actually calling from Southern California as a consumer and a patient. And I just want to express my support for all of the family farms and to express how important it is for patients and consumers that they survive and that they have a future and that the legacy of these farms is extremely important. And I do believe that other counties in the state are watching. So I appreciate the time, and I would respectfully ask that you listen to these farmers and suspend the measure and support small batch farmers. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. And we have 7054 followed. Yes, let's go 7054. Press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Yes, hello. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in this area, and I have seen a rise in the need for mental health services for things that the farmers are talking about today. And I just want to be a voice for the mental health component that can impact a community, especially when financial resources are negatively impacted. When this happens, the community often can face social repercussions that can be dire. When any part of the health and prosperity of a community is challenged, the impacts for all of us can be seriously consequential. And these consequences need to be recognized today. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we are now out of callers. I think we were a couple shy of last week, but I really appreciate everybody that called in today, spent some time with us. And I'm sorry, one hand went up, but I've already said we were done, so I'm not going to go reopen it again. So I know there's been a request. I received a request by one supervisor for approximately a 20-minute break. I think staff, do we have anything? Alicia, is that? I know we've got lunch to worry about too, or we can order lunch. If we're not done, we can order lunch also. But like I was thinking 10-minute break, but Supervisor Wilson did request a little bit longer one, I think. Supervisor Wilson, I'll let you.
Yeah, we've been at this for 2 hours, and I do need to run to my car for a minute to grab some food and other things like that. But also, I would like to reach out to a staff member to ask them just, basic questions that I need to hone in on. So.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's fine with me.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Bohn, Supervisor Madrone, we're gonna come back at 11:25. I give you 20 minutes there. Okay. And thanks everyone. We'll be back at 11:25. Staff looking like they want to provide anything.
Through the chair, I don't have anything to add to public comment. Very curious to hear from your board, unless Tabitha had something to add.
No, I think the only thing that was raised during public comment, there was one caller who referred to the staff report from last week, and just there was the information has changed a bit and the direction of the board gave us. And so that would be the only item.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Bohn.
Wow, well, thanks everybody for taking time out of their day to speak. I know it was mentioned that nobody talked against the tax. You should have been in my pocket all weekend. I had lots. And good arguments, both, in favor, and did a lot of things. I really listened to what Sean Stams had to say, because Sean doesn't just sell a singular product. He makes his product into something other than just bud, and it's becoming very renowned. As we do all our products. I mean, if you go on to there's a very popular, I guess it would be a direct site on the internet that's done locally that has over 4,000 products, I think. A lot of it based out of here. So it's pretty amazing. Not all of it's out of here, but pretty amazing stuff. And quite a bit of it's medicinal. I'm looking at this, and there's a certain amount of attrition going on anyway. I mean, Santa Barbara's got hundreds and probably over 1,000. I mean, they have less licenses, but they have much more acreage. Lake County has just approved a 100-acre farm and a 75-acre farm. And our corporate mammoth giant farms we maxed out at 8 acres. And that was 1 acre per, that was, I think, an acre per 100 acres is what we limited and let them join up to have less impact. I really appreciated Isaiah's approach at the end there, because Isaiah was dead center in the middle of this, coming out of bringing these people out of the dark into the light. I can remember promising some of them that this would be the best thing for them. And we did have a compromise. We had, I don't know how many meetings. I tried to go back and figure out how many meetings we are, and I lost track at 20 some odd. Mike came in right at the end of them, I think, or, kind of a deer in the headlight, but he was paying attention. A couple people weren't around, and I know I had had big thoughts on it, didn't have much input, but we came to a pretty good compromise. And so this wasn't some ogre of a tax we threw out there. This was something we threw out there. At the time, and I still think we may be or pretty close, we were the lowest in the state. Our original tax was 12, 10, and 8, was what's presented to us. And then there was a compromise of 6, 4, and 2, and we came in at 1, 2, and 3. And I could have had my head on a platter then for supporting that. Many times I could have my head on a platter. I had somebody tell me this weekend that they were saying I shouldn't suspend or do anything with this tax. And then they said, you government, you're as bad as all of them, Rex. All you want to do is take our money. And I couldn't say no to that. That's what we do. But we also fix your roads. We pick up your trash. And something goes bump in the night, we ask our sheriffs to go out there. Albeit maybe he's the only guy on patrol in that area, but he has to go out there and see what's going bump in the night. So I don't do this. I'm probably going to run pretty much with what I said last week, and I want to suspend the measure. I want to suspend the second Measure S tax, the one that comes due in May, till September 15th. It is still due. That's this year's. The previous tax will incur penalties until it is paid. It's not a complete suspension, but this last one that's due in May, it's not a suspension. It is to put it off till September 15th. I am putting a hand in, and we're all trying. There isn't a person on this board that doesn't want to help you in one way or another. But I also know for a lot of you, 50% isn't going to do it. So suspend Measure S for 2022, and then we'll reassess together what we're going to do down the road. I'm not going to do it for 2 years, 3 years. I'm not going to say it's not coming back at 100%, and then we'll deal from there. We'll have a good idea where the market's going. And the market, and I'm going to say this, our tax, and it was very well stated, our tax isn't the state tax is the issue, a big part of the issue. Our tax is fairly small, but you're exactly right. It starts, we support you and the state has to support you. And like Nicole Elliott, I hope she is listening, said last week, taxes aren't the problem. It's a big much. You're right. Protect our borders. Quit letting thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds go into the illegal dispensaries in LA. Again, I'll say it, there's over 1,200 illegal dispensaries, and they are selling Oregon and black market. You guys are making them pay the taxes, enforcement on both illegal grows and illegal dispensaries. That's what is needed to help bolster up this market. And then the big thing is, and we did this, I think I want to say 17, 18, I can't remember. We put a big push. A couple of us put a big push to waive water storage, basically tanks and stuff, off a property tax. And it was bounced back and forth with the assessor. And I thought we made headway, and we didn't make headway. And just like anything else, something else came up and we let it die off. But I think we need to, going forward in after 2022, is credits for investments, water storage, rainwater, solar, regenerative farming. I mean, then there's people doing regenerative farming. And that's where we have to step up and do it. So, and then they'll qualify for minor tax credits going into the future and these tax credits, I'm not saying just for cultivators. I'm saying that goes into all agriculture, dairy farmers. I mean, people that go to the farmers market. We need for regenerative and solar and, you know, anything we can help. Those are all good things. But is this a popular statement? No. And I'm going to actually turn all that into a motion if Nikki kind of picked up on any of that. But
I thought I sounded emotion. It sounded like there was emotion in there. So,
but I just think that's the way it's going to go. I'm not trying to put anybody on a spot or anything else. I want to hear the further discussion, but I want to put it out there. It sounds like, and again, we had a lot of people commenting saying yes. I mean, and I'm not going to downplay that because I knew quite a few of them and I respect them. And last week's, I mean, these are people that we asked to come out of the dark. And you got to understand, we only had 20% come out of the dark back in 16, 17, 18. A lot of them told these people they were crazy. So, I mean, I appreciate everything, and they have made, but I want to tell you, I had a guy send me a thing on what it's taken him to build a house out in the country. And he's having to do the same thing. The dairy farmer has to pay all those water fees you're paying, plus stormwater runoff, plus, you know, document his water. There's a price to do business, and we know that. But as if, you know, USDA will step in this drought relief, the USDA, CDFA will step up and help agriculture. These people don't get it. A lot of people got ARPA funds. These folks don't get it. And someday there will be something along the same lines. I've been to Washington, D.C. twice on just banking because that's where the crime is. Crime follows money, and that's Colorado's there, all the legal states, because that's where the problem is. It wasn't for as much for legalization as we have to find a way of banking legacy. So we are trying, but today I asked my other supervisors to take a step forward, let the state see what we're doing, and I asked some of my supporters who are going to hang me in effigy tonight, please understand why I did this. Thank you.
So that was a motion?
That is a motion.
And Nikki, did you hear?
You want the short motion?
Yeah, please.
Please.
The measured taxes that are due now on the May 21st payment be suspended till September 15th. The first payment, the payment previous to this, is due September 15th, but will incur penalties. So it's due by, but you're going to incur penalties on that first payment up until then. Suspend Measure S 2022 going forward, and then sit down and we'll reassess. But it comes back at what it is now. We'll reassess what needs to be changed according to market conditions. Market conditions have changed. We all agree with that. And tax credits, I want to make sure that we put in, it's already in there, but I want to have tax credits for investments into sustainability, water storage, solar, regenerative farming, all the touchy-feely stuff that really makes sense. I don't downplay that at all when I say that. All these things that make sense environmentally for us going forward, and these will qualify for tax credits going forward. And what we do is we figure out as we go forward. You follow me, Mike? You give me that confused look like I give that. Okay. I give my looks.
This is a short version. I'm trying to figure out.
Well, that's it.
I was trying to follow. Sorry, just trying to follow.
I mean, well, it's a pretty big deal.
Well, once we get a real motion.
So, and then we'll look at future taxes. I'm sorry, that's my abridged version.
Nikki? I mean,
okay. So I have suspend Measure S taxes. I'm assuming it's the 2021 Measure S tax that's due in May. Make that, I'll pretty up the words, but make that due in September 15th. The first payment due in the 2021 Measure S tax can also be paid by the 15th of September. However, we'll incur penalties until that's paid. Suspend 2022 Measure S taxes, and then bring that back to reassess at that time. Also, I don't know, the tax credits for investment and sustainability, such as water storage, et cetera, that's in there, but you want to make sure that they get that credit. Is that correct?
I want to make sure that we discuss it better than we did last time and put it on paper and then forget about it.
Okay. Discussion sounds really good. Is there a second for discussion purposes?
I want to ask some questions of staff.
Well, I'm going to second for discussion because I can. We're short of persons. This is also kind of strange today that we've only got the 4 of us. And so I'll second it. And Supervisor Wilson, you mentioned wanting to ask some questions. So
yeah, I just part of this is I agree with Supervisor Bohn with relationship to what he said before we had public comment, which is, the numbers that we see that are on that on that table don't really represent what we understand will likely be attrition and failure of some of these or maybe downsizing or whatever it is of the industry in Humboldt County as we see it, and doesn't really account for that in terms of our revenues, no matter what we do, whether it's 100%, 50, 25, 0, it doesn't matter. We're going to see that change happen. And now, to the degree that this has an impact on that change, I think there's some debate about that, but I think it probably, we definitely have some impact on that. So I want to acknowledge that for sure. So I guess Alicia, we're talking the potential for pretty significant budget issues associated with this, and likely, I would say, like hiring freezes, or what do you think are some what we might see occur in this in the scenario that's proposed by Supervisor Bohn?
When staff returns with a resolution to effectuate your board's order, with that, we will also make recommendations on some budgetary mitigations that can be implemented. Most definitely, one of those would be a hiring freeze, because if we are potentially come back in the fall and suspend Measure S for another year, that has 2 years of significant budgetary impacts, and we don't want to be expanding on our most expensive budgetary line item being salaries and benefits. We will also likely recommend, when we come to your board through mid-year and through the budget process, that no additional supplemental funding requests be approved for the coming fiscal year. And then we will monitor that, and ideally, am I freezing? Can you all hear me?
I could hear you, but your visual froze a little bit.
My whole screen just went black. So we will, for the long-term impacts, evaluate staffing levels as a whole, and depending on the severity of that, along with other increases in staffing costs, we may need to look at an overall staffing reduction in the workforce. But that is, of course, last case scenario. We have a lot of work before we get to that point.
Okay, and I do want to acknowledge too the discussion about where Humboldt and our policies sit in a sort of statewide framework. And I can imagine that, that the state is definitely looking at this discussion. I think we're probably some of the most vulnerable community of farmers, I think, from this change for sure. Right, we know that in general, this was created out of prohibition and the sort of placed on the landscape under that sort of thing, and actually was hoping to rely on another form of prohibition through a 1 acre cap, at the state, which didn't work out. and just whatever, certain prohibitions allowed for price increases that, or on the values on the product that allowed for this, and created what we have on our landscape today. And this is a pretty tough transition to figure out how to move forward productively. And so this is hard. There's a lot of people really suffering in this situation. There's just absolutely no doubt about it. And yet we are some of the lowest taxes in the state relative to a local jurisdiction. And I know that Nevada County is actually looking at their last meeting. They discussed moving towards a flat square foot tax like ours. I think their staff report had the minimum of, on what they were looking at was a 50 cents per square foot. And what they're doing is they're doing like a 50 cents, a $1 and a $2 per square foot per turn. So that was the way that they actually did balance between, say like a mixed light versus in the sun. That's how they did it, is like per turn. That's what and by turn, I think everyone knows what that means here. So I just thought that was interesting that they're looking at that because they're looking at simplifying this. And so I have this idea that we're going to come back and bring back a new, fairer tax when the proposal on the table is to eliminate it all, and we're hearing that language. I just think is unlikely to occur, at least at the local level. I don't have a lot of faith in that necessarily. It doesn't mean it won't happen, and I've been wrong before on things. It just seems like we did go through a big process, as Supervisor Bohn mentioned, and the voters voted on something. This isn't the supervisors just didn't do this. And to Rex's thing, I was not on the board when this was enacted. I don't remember being on the board when this happened. I think that was my predecessor. And so, but yet it's like, there's, like Supervisor Bohn, I have heard from community members that are not so excited about the elimination of this as a tax, or as a fee, or whatever people want to phrase it. And so I'm trying to find that space in between and be functional about it. Nonetheless, I really think that and I want to say that the folks that spoke today and the other day, or in the last week, were really the best of our people out there. I want to be like, these are the folks that need support, and in terms of these are the folks. And I have to contrast that with sort of the culture clash and and the narratives that I'm receiving from constituents about the other side of that, the stereotypes about the $80,000 grow dozer giant trucks speeding 60 miles an hour down the road, and people shooting off guns, and all kinds of other crazy activities that some are associated with compliant or with permitted farms, and some with not. And I guess what I'm saying is that there are folks that are saying there are impacts in our community, and it's not without impact, right? That we have this. And so how are we supposed to respond with infrastructure and public safety and public health services into these spaces when we're having, and we have to respond in these spaces, which are very difficult to get into. They cost a lot from staff time and all these other things. And it's hard to maintain long distances of infrastructure, including roads, for, it just becomes more harder and inefficient and difficult into these spaces. And so, and yet, the expectations are there because there is these expectations. And I also say that there's an expectation that this crop or this agricultural activity will there's an expectation that it should sustain itself in these places that won't sustain any other agricultural activity except for maybe grazing, logging, some, maybe some buying the grapes or something like that. There's just really, it's very, very difficult to sustain a living on those spaces, and there's an expectation that this will do it, and that's a huge expectation on us to help foment and create and sustain as we move forward. And so it's just complicated. I think from my perspective, I'm kind of more leaning towards the 25% across the board on that when we're coming at the first two parts of what Rex was talking about. Supervisor, I think is not unreasonable, and I would say that we need to keep people, I feel like, in the system and moving forward if we're going to sustain. And if we're getting, I just feel like we're not going to even have a new fairer tax system that's going to come out the other side if we really drop this down to full suspension. That's just that's how I feel about it in the current context. So, and any lower than 25%, and we're not, it's not going to be, we're not going to, it's going to be not kind of worth administering at that point. So those are my thoughts on this.
Okay, Supervisor Madrone, I'll just reach out and see what your thoughts are. Don't mean to be picking on people. It just seems easier, especially since there's just 4 of us.
Nothing to add at this time.
Okay. Yeah. This is one of those things, like Supervisor Bohn, I had my share of people that were not too thrilled with the concept. And what I was trying to explain, actually one of them, however, said, they said they didn't have any sympathy, but then they did mention, however, we should not tax them differently than other agriculture, and so I'm thinking, I think there are mixed feelings out there. I think people are forgetting that there's still quite a bit of property taxes that are being paid on buildings and things that were permitted that normally wouldn't have been probably in the past. I don't think there's any empirical data on that. So that's just my assumptions, which I know are always dangerous to make. I keep thinking that if we drive the legal operators out of business, then we are basically encouraging illegal to take over. And so I have a hard time here. I don't like giving away money. I don't like the idea of hiring freeze. I'm uncomfortable, and I wish that we could have had some of those options brought to us, like, well, if you guys go down this road, this is what we might be looking at. Because I'm thinking Measure S pays for, $400,000 a year to first 5. There are positions with that. So to me, I wish, and we don't have it today, but it would have been nice to have kind of gone, okay, so what would that impact look like as it got on the ground? So it's there's only 4 of us, so we have to come up with something that we can work with here to get anything accomplished today. So how we do that, I'm not exactly sure.
To the chair.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes,
no, Mike, are you talking a 25% reduction or a 25% tax?
75% reduction.
Okay, and through Alicia, so that will let us hire everybody?
Or some?
That is probably still going to require a hiring freeze, at least in the temporary basis. And to Supervisor Bass's comment, this is a very large budgetary impact that is before us. And we are, already in the process of preparing the budget for next year, and we're sort of holding off to see what this is going to look like. So, I apologize that we can't tell you exactly how this is going to look in the coming months, but we have a ton of work just in preparing for a new budget cycle alone, but adding on this significant change. Me and my staff need to come back together to determine what those cuts are going to look like. And I am going to try to absorb as much as I can through the elimination of one-time funding requests. That's the most reasonable accommodation, considering this is potentially going to be a short-term reduction to revenues. But very likely a hiring freeze is going to be necessary, at least in the short term.
And to follow up on that question, are we to that, but, and obviously that we're not hitting the, I mean, $2.8 million collected so far this year. We're not dancing too much with that. I mean, and I tell you, at the end of the 2014-15 budget year, our budget cracked for that year was the first time it cracked $300 million. When I came on, it was $247 million in 2011 or 12, whatever it was. And I remember adamantly saying government was getting too big. Well, we just punched over this year over $500 million. So as we're talking about freezes and everything else, maybe it is time we look at a little bit of everything, because this little part of, and we're talking $6 or $8 million. I mean, I hate to say it, attrition's going to eat this up like no tomorrow. And it is a one-time hit. You're right. And as far as a hiring freeze goes, there are enough empty positions in DHHS, sheriffs, planning and building, all the way through. They've all got multiple, that it is not really a hiring freeze because we can't fill all the positions anyway. So it's going to balance itself out through just the normal course of us doing business, because there's rollovers every year. We see it when we do our budgets. And this is a big deal. And I understand this, Mike. I understand this. I mean, and I guarantee you, and I'm not saying anything, I got more people that are going to crawl up my Kahootie than are going to crawl up yours for doing this. But I mean, my long-term sustainability, looking at this, at the big picture and everything else, for this to survive, for the appellations to get followed through, for us to be, I mean, you know, Modesto makes more wine than Napa and Sonoma combined, I think. I read this one time. I mean, it's a huge amount. You know, go look where Two Buck Chuck is, you know, and look at the mass volumes of wine. But nobody goes into a wine store saying, "Hey, give me some of that Modesto wine." Nobody goes into a dispensary and says, "Hey, give me that Lake County stuff." We still have a brand to work off, and we still need to work off that. And if we can still implement that, but the long-term sustainability of what's going on. And you're right. Some of these guys, the guns and grow dozers, I make that joke all the time, but I know a lot of people that run around shooting guns and have a big truck and don't have anything to do with the industry. I'm just telling you, I don't think you can pinpoint. I mean, I hate to say it, I've got a somewhat bigger truck and guns, and I haven't shot up my neighborhood yet. So as we move forward, I look at this and knowing full well that we're not going to really actually have a hiring freeze. I mean, it sounds shocking that your services are going to end tomorrow, but we've expanded your services by quite a bit just in the last 5 years by $200 million. So your services are not going to drop down, and through attrition and through people leaving and retirements and everything else, we're going to be able to balance this out. And we have a 1 year stopgap to help an industry, much like it's been done with other industries on the federal and state level. Not all industries. And just so you know, we talk about taxes, and just so the industry, you got to see what a gallon of liquor is charged through the state and federal, and you'd go, holy good gosh. So there's timber taxes. There's not as bad as this, but we were operating on the fly and worked with you guys on Measure S. So it's a one-shot deal, and if we don't support it, it is what it is.
Thank you. Supervisor Wilson, you had your hand up at one time, I thought.
Yeah, I probably forgot what I was going to say, but I do think that again, you know, my concern is that we won't come back from this if this is the direction we take. That we're there. I don't know, like at 25% of what it currently is. If we were already at 25% of what it currently is, would that be considered a fair tax? And what I mean by that is, like, is it a tax that is, you know, generates some revenue to put back into those communities, but also help, the county run its, keep civil society together as best we can, and just moving forward without having the complication of going through the rigmarole of, trying to create a new tax when there's a whole nother county going towards a flat tax or a similar tax, square foot tax like we are, because it's simpler and at a higher rate, quite frankly. And so I'm just trying to find the sustainable path in terms of like administrating this forward. And as a reminder, we have Measure Z that that was specifically to address the needs that in our rural sectors, in rural areas, that there wasn't the revenue from taxation in those spaces to supply all the services. And so we did Measure Z. And so that in its sum total and aggregate actually moves. It's mostly taxed in the urban zones, and then and supplying that out in those services into the rural districts, because we were getting a lot of stress on our urban systems, it's public safety in particular and fire, that was like needed help in those spaces. And so I guess what I'm saying is like we talk about these systems as generating revenue, but do they generate enough revenue for us to actually supply the services that are expected or desired or even required? That's the part where I'm not so sure about, and that's why I feel like if we move away from this too much, we're never going to get back to it. That's all.
So if I'm hearing you,
the board wants to go this way. So,
well, if I'm hearing you kind of correctly, it's almost like the 25% would be acting kind of like as a placeholder, so people still get used to the fact that there is something that's been there and just doesn't go away, because when it's totally gone, people kind of forget about it. I mean, that is kind of.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna. Yeah, I just think it'll be hard to get back to that place again, but I've been wrong. I mean, I just want to say, it's like, if you look at the board, currently right now, there's even for us as a board to find members that want to be on a cannabis committee or this, that, and the other, it's a little difficult at the moment. And even finding members of the community that want to be on our cannabis committees is difficult. So I don't know. It's like the expectation that we're going to have another go at this, I think is, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. So.
Well, no, I appreciate that. I wanted to ask Alicia or Tabitha. We had received some communication about Trellis and the marketing. And some of it made sense about most industries. They're not marketed by the government, I guess. But there was a mention of putting that 1.2 million that we were going to do for marketing, that we're still trying to figure out what to do, I think, if we're doing marketing, but putting that back into the county coffers. So what would the impact of that be? I mean, obviously it'd be helpful there, but what happens to the work that has been done? And there's no good decisions, let's just put it that way. But because I do wear that first five, I still go to first five. It's like, I don't like hiring freezes either, but there's other good things that we do. I really hate to see dollars cut for.
Through the chair, yes, that could be one way to offset some of the budgetary impacts, to move the marketing money back to the general fund. That is a discretionary general fund allocation approved by your board annually. So that's a pretty easy budget adjustment that can be made if the consensus is that we don't want to move forward with a marketing campaign.
Okay, so that I appreciate that from the standpoint that, whatever we do, I think there needs to be some, I don't say give by the industry, but if that is a place that they think they can deal with their own marketing and would like, it just would be a little less of a bite if it made sense to bring it back to the general fund. Just curious. Supervisor Madrone, did you add anything? Yeah. Or you can keep saying no, but I'll keep calling on you just in case.
Well, look at that. I even raised my hand.
I know, nice.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, several things. I, like all the rest of you, have received a lot of calls, a lot of emails about don't offer anything unless you're reducing our property taxes as well, and all those kinds of things, right? And I spend quite a bit of time responding and trying to explain to folks that, well, we're not talking about property taxes. In fact, nobody in the cannabis industry is asking for any reduction on their property tax or their income tax. And frankly, in regards to their income tax, they're not allowed to write off a lot of expenses that all the other ag and other businesses are allowed to do. So, it's really important for the general public to understand that this industry is simply not treated the same as any other industry. It, from the very get-go, has had a tremendous burden placed upon it. And it's not that I think we ought to be having less environmental standards, but it's definitely far more onerous than any other ag industry has on it. And it's also true that as a county, we're in crisis. We have a staffing crisis already that has created limited staff in DHHS, in every department across the county. Doesn't currently have the staffing it needs to really do its job well for the community. And so in order to try and fix that, we just went through a long process of negotiations with our unions and have offered very substantial benefit improvements and wage increases so that we can start dealing with this staffing crisis that we have at the county. And I was really pleased to see that a few weeks after we did that, Sheriff Hansel was on the news stating that thank you to the board for accomplishing what he, I believe, called the best wage and benefit package he's seen in his career. And he noted that it had already, within just a few weeks, had already had a positive impact on recruitment, retention, and morale. And so I don't want to see us go backwards on that. We've worked really hard to get to that place. And in order to continue that momentum, we're going to have the revenues we need to be able to do that. So that being said, I also think that this industry deserves some assistance right now. And the only question really is, what does that assistance look like? What can we afford to do? What seems fair in regards to all the rest of the community? I mean, there's bars and restaurants and all kinds of places that have been collapsing. But again, most other industries were able to get CARES Act funding or ARPA funding or other sources to help them, including bank loans, including writing off their expenses and losses. The cannabis industry just doesn't get to do that. So in the meantime, we're in this kind of limbo because it's still federally illegal. And that's, I believe, a big part of what drove a lot of the really intense regulation on this plant. So again, that's just sort of background on some of the things that, I've been hearing from constituents and others in regards to what to do here. I think that, we've got several issues, and I think we probably have some pretty strong agreement on several of them. And really, there's only one area, I think, where we're still separated in terms of what we think we should best do. So just to be really clear, the first piece was the taxes on the 2020 crop. And again, for the public, what we did as a board a couple of years ago, this tax used to be levied on people before they even grew a plant. It was taxed at the beginning of the year. We as a board recognized how that was just not the right thing to do. So we shifted that tax a whole year forward, gave everybody a year of reprieve. So we already did this once where we basically gave everybody a year off from paying the taxes they eventually had to pay, but we pushed it out a year and made it so that it was a tax after the growing season for a lot of good reasons. And so what we're talking about, the first year we're even considering doing anything about is the 2020 growing year and the taxes associated with that, which were due in March and October of 2021. So there was 2 installments. This board heard people and already took an action to push the deadline for the October 2020 taxes, for the 2020 tax year that was due in October, we already pushed that out and allowed that to be paid by May without any penalties or fees. And I've heard a suggestion by Supervisor Bohn to extend that extension out to September without any penalties or fees on that second installment that was due in October. I support that. I also heard Supervisor Bohn say that the March payment that was due, March 2021, on 2020 growing, was still due and overdue and is accruing penalties and late fees. And we didn't do anything about that. We just extended the October payment. So I would stand with both of those things. I think we have good agreement there between Supervisor Bohn, myself, and I believe probably the rest of the board. Okay, and then we have what to do about the 2021 growing year and the taxes on that would be due in 2022 in March and October as 2 installments. There's been suggestions of forgiving 100% of that. There's been suggestions of 25% of that. There's several suggestions in the staff report of various tiering. You know, maybe we do something with tier 1, tier 2. So there's definitely some discussion going on around that we're currently not in agreement on. And then there's the future. And there's a couple pieces to the future. And one of them is Measure S. And I agree that if we were to completely go to zero, it is a hard thing to come back from. Expectations get really large, et cetera. And I'm not supportive of suspending taxes 100% and having nothing moving forward. Because as I said, we have staffing needs. We have things we need to get done for the county. But if we don't do something, the amount of taxes we're going to get are going down anyway. We already know that. We already know that we might only get 50, if we're lucky, 70% of the taxes from 2020, maybe only 50% or less from 2021. So we already know that's going to happen. So it would be a smart thing for us to recognize what's happened to the industry at no fault of the farmers per se, and do something to try and keep as many farms alive and well and making it through this period, hopefully with state fallowing, local fallowing. People can choose not to plant for a while, reduce the quantity until our brand, the best flower on the planet, gets back to where it was at before all this stuff started to happen. So I think that, the future is a different discussion. And I think that keeping Measure S alive with some level of payment gives us our best chance, as Supervisor Wilson said, of actually revisiting this subject and revamping the ordinance or coming back with a new ordinance. And personally, I would rather see the tax on the end product because the consumer is already paying that price. And as I said before, I don't think we ought to be putting that tax on the farmer. And part of why we did the square footage approach is because the county gets more money that way. If you put it on the end product, it's at the dispensary and the cities get more of it. So there's definitely some issues there in terms of who ends up with the revenue, in terms of how you craft these different things. But at any rate, I really believe that tax should go away ultimately, not today, not tomorrow, but somewhere in the near future, and crafted as a tax on the end product at the dispensary. And in that revamped Measure S or amended Measure S or new measure, as was mentioned earlier, and I've been mentioning for 3 years, probably 25 years of my career, it's tax incentives and permit incentives that really help drive good behavior. It's where we can provide all those financial incentives for things like regenerative farming and solar, water, and roads, like Supervisor Bohn was mentioning. And I agree with him that ultimately, while we might implement an incentive-based approach with tax credits in the cannabis program, ultimately, I'd like to see that only as a pilot, that we eventually are able to expand tax credits to all landowners. If you're doing a good job of keeping all your rainwater, stormwater on your property, in rainwater catchment ponds or other kinds of ways, no drainage to the street, you're doing solar, you're doing low impact development, you're doing really good things for public trust values. I would love to see stewardship tax and permit incentives to encourage that on the part of all landowners. But we're not going to get there today, and we're not going to get there with Measure S. But Measure S, a revamped approach, could absolutely provide us with a pathway towards developing a pilot to test out some of these incentive measures, then expand it to all ag, and then eventually expand it to all property owners. So I think we probably have strong agreement on moving forward with incentives and stuff out there. Probably have strong agreement on extending the 2020 taxes out till September 15th, as was suggested. So the only real question left on the table is, what are we doing with the taxes that are owed from 2021? And I like the 25% approach. I could probably go a little more, but I'm absolutely not supportive of doing 100% reduction. And frankly, I'd rather see it be on tier one, that we provide the discount on all the tier one, on the outdoor, in the soil, because as been mentioned, they only get one turn. When you're doing mixed light or indoor, you can do multiple turns. There's more income, there's more expenses. But I've always been a big supporter of small farms, in particular, growing it in the sun, in the ground. And that's where I would put my incentive approach. So anyway, there's some of my thoughts. I'm sure we'll have more discussion.
Okay, and I would ask Supervisor Madrone, just out of curiosity, any interest in the trellis marketing dollars going back to the general fund on that, even though I don't know if that's.
Yes. Yes, I think the industry has spoken very clearly that they would like to be marketing themselves, and I support that.
Okay. Well, and yeah, Supervisor Wilson, and then Supervisor Bohn. Is that a hand up too? Okay, Supervisor Wilson and Supervisor Bohn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty torn on this in terms of, because I want to be clear that the sort of vision of the grow dozer and the guns, that's not who, those are not the neighbors that called in here in these past few days. The neighbors that called in here are the neighbors you want, right? These are the people who are extremely responsible, or have and really trying hard, not just trying hard to be supportive of their community externally, but to their landscapes and others. And it's just there's just definitely a mix in that space. And certainly, I mean, and hearts of gold in many of those calls. I mean, people I know personally, John Casali, heart of gold. I mean, he's just a really wonderful person. Rio, others. I mean, there's just folks in there that are just really and many others I don't even know. They're there and struggling and just trying to make it work in just the most convoluted space. I mean, the regulations associated with this are daunting, as they would be when you want to establish these types of things in impacted watersheds. It's just these laws were promulgated under Redwood Summer, or the result of that, and so this is part of that trying to figure it out in the landscape. It's hard. Prohibition, as damaging as it was to so many things and to so many people, created the price structure that allowed for this industry to sustain and grow for decades. And so sort of ramping down of that prohibition, I agree with some of the callers. There's still a prohibition lens, definitely both backwards and forwards, that we're dealing with, and it's definitely creating complications in this for sure. I'm still where I'm at, but we can adapt if we need to.
Okay, so I'm hearing you're still where you're at. You mean with the original 75% reduction, 25%?
Yeah, and again, I understand about tiering and not tiering and sort of the complication with that. And I hear Supervisor Madrone with relationship to some of, especially we have heard from multiple people that, indoors doing fine. They're producing the product that we even heard from one caller. There was some division in there about what you produce or don't produce, and and I'm sure there is division. We didn't really hear it besides that one caller. We heard unanimity from folks, and I really appreciate that in terms of the messaging and the organization of that. I think that's solid, and I think that kind of organizing is going to help moving forward in terms of creating the structures that we need to promote sustainability where we can in these things. So
thank you. Supervisor Bohn, can you turn your mic on? Thanks.
Yeah, and Supervisor Madrone, I appreciate all you brought up. The problem with taxing, it should be at the dispensaries. I think we have 4 or 5 dispensaries in the county, and I think Eureka has, I don't know how many, Arcata has how many, and you start figuring out. Fortuna has, Little Red Dale has 2 that I know of. And what we do is if we can drive them to the cities any quicker, they're already here for Costco, Target, Walmart, and everything else. So we lose that sales tax dollar anyway. So I don't know if that's the answer unless you can get a statewide venture. So it's a great idea, but as done with most of the other resource tax, a lot of those taxes on cigarettes, tobacco, and stuff are on both ends. So you can go back and forth. You can go back and look at Prohibition, which I've read 3 books on it. It's so much like this. They taxed it a lot because that was going to balance our whole budget. We were going to do it on the backs, and now this is going to drop down so much. And I appreciate, and maybe 100% is too big a bite. Like I said, we've grown our budget $200 million. We're talking right now between 0 and 25%, $2-3 million, $4 million of what is actually going to come in. I figure we're looking at 10, so $2.5 million. And in all honesty, the county can find that. I mean, if they have to. DHHS uses no Measure S funds. I checked with them. The only thing, the suspension I was looking at, it's easier on staff. No bills go out at all. So there's going to be staff time involved against that 25% or whatever. And then I heard both of you say, and I want to work with you guys. I want to work with the community. I want to know, and Steve made a very good point, Supervisor Madrone. This is a tax that only these guys are paying. They're still paying their property. They're still paying all their other fees that they all pay. They still pay their car taxes. So this is a tax. A lot of industries aren't paying what I'm saying, Mike, is a lot of industries aren't paying a marijuana excise tax if they're building a house. That's what I'm saying. Nobody else is having to build that special tax. So I heard compromise and everything else. So you want to keep it alive, much like our esteemed governors have thrown $1,000 a year every year to keep the Williamson Act alive for the state. And we subsidize the Williamson Act, which I firmly, and I think the board all appreciates. I think that's what we do. That's a good idea. And then to say, if these guys don't grow marijuana, the only things they can do in the hills is ranch or log. It built the community. Ranching and logging have built the community. So, I'm not going to turn my nose up at those things. And they've chosen to live on their properties out there. So, to bring in the other aspect, I know you're strong on. I think that's the whole different aspect. So I would come down to, God, I feel like I'm doing an auction. Somebody give me 5. Somebody give me 10%. It stays alive. They're still aware. If they can't afford 10%, maybe they shouldn't be in the business. I don't know. But I think we as a board have to make a step up because I know, trust me, I've been talking to Nevada County probably half a dozen to a dozen times over the last 2 weeks period. The Nevada County chair of RCRC, is from Nevada County, so fully aware. RCRC is very involved in these things and watching what we do because this is not a Humboldt County centric thing. It's becoming everybody's issue. So with that being said, I will change. And it's a paperwork nightmare, but I would go to 10%, or if Mike likes his tiers, 100% for tier 1 90% for tier 2 and 75% for tier 3, which is only 1%. But I'm just saying, if you want to make sure the tiers, I think it's the idea of doing the same tax all the way across the board provides unity and does not have them arguing amongst themselves. Not that they would. They showed pretty good unity today. So, I mean, if you want to keep it alive, I'd go to 10 and keep everything else the same across the board.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yeah, I need to reach out to CAO Hayes for a second here. And yeah, this is my concern is sort of the administration of this, and just wondering like where that lands. I just having a hard time with that.
Can I ask, before she answers that, can I ask one question? Could you give us that answer both with the marketing money and without the marketing money?
And do we need to give you a break, Alicia, a few minutes to kind of come up with some numbers of what you've been hearing us ask for?
Through the chair, just one point of clarification on the marketing money. We do have, there's about $740,000 left in that fund. Next year, that would be about $900 after next year's allocation was approved by your board. I would have to defer to Tabitha if she can cost this out rather quickly for you. The tiered approach does get complicated as she drills that down. And Supervisor, can you confirm it was 190 and then what was the 25%? I mean the tier 3, excuse me.
I think that was Rex that.
Rex, do you really mean starting at 90%? Because that would be the 10%. You know what I'm saying? Or did you really mean 100% for?
I meant just what I said, because then that got the people that you thought that would be the 25 and the 75. So I'm kind of want to go with 90% across the board. I think, and I agree that 1 year would show a commitment, but I agree that you want to keep some meat on the bone through the winter. And I think depending how we go with marketing, I think that's doable. I think the attrition rate of this is going to be much more drastic than we think. And so, I mean, we came back with the first thing out of the chute last time was, well, we're going to have hiring freeze. And that's the headline. We do this, no more people for the county and services drop. And that's not the case. I want that. Even if we went into a hiring freeze, we do not have all our positions filled. We probably have 15% of our positions, close to 15% of our positions aren't filled. They are allocated. They're not filled. So, with that, we have a natural attrition to that alone, through the sheriff, through all the offices. We've heard it over and over that we've increased staffing 50% in auditor controller, but they're understaffed. So I'm just saying it's out there, unless we're hiring 275 people tomorrow.
Before I go to CAO Hayes, I wanted to kind of say too, I think Supervisor Wilson was asking you a question because you did mention something kind of regarding a tiered potential approach, Supervisor Bohn. So I think that's why. And
I understand. And it was 0, 90, and 25. And just because that was just to keep, if he wanted to keep the tier alive, that will be increased costs for staffing, just so you know.
Right, well,
and the other thing is, and I don't know if I can do an addendum, or how do you do those add-ons that confuse us, Mike? But now that we do that, how do you?
You do an amending motion.
Yeah.
The only amended motion I'd like to see on that is when the taxes that we suspend are due, that if we do get, depending where we go, they need to notify the county that we expect to come back on board the following year, both those mentioned, because that will allow Ms. Miller and Ms. Hayes to budget accordingly, knowing that they're coming back on instead of a shot in the dark. That's the only thing. And no paperwork, no losses, unless just a small note saying we plan on coming back.
Okay, and thank you. I'm hearing more than just one amendment, because we're talking also about the number, but we can certainly come back to that and sort it out a bit. CEO Hayes?
Speaking to the 10%, that is roughly going to be $1.4 million in revenue. We can extrapolate that out by each 10%, equating that to roughly $1.4 million in revenues. And staff would anticipate, should you only do a 1-year waiver in returning back to the board in the probably around October or November, to discuss the following year and help us to have good information for budgetary purposes.
I hear that. If we're going to talk tiers, then I would say tier 1, 90% reduction to tier 1, 75% reduction to tier 2, and 50% reduction to tier 3 would be probably where I would be at if we're doing tiers.
Tabitha, can you provide an estimate on how long it might take you to cost out some tiered scenarios?
And then are you talking so we can potentially take a break and let Tabitha do her work? Okay.
If she can do it, I'm not sure the time, it might be more cumbersome than.
So I actually have Supervisor Bohn's proposal, which is outdoor still at 0%, a 90% reduction for mixed tier 2, and then only a 25% reduction for indoor. And when you net out still using that 31% delinquency, it gives us $728,000 a year in revenue. And if you give me just a couple minutes, I can plug in the new one, which is a 90% reduction for sun-grown, 75% for mixed, and 50% for indoor. And I'll get back to you in a couple minutes, or you can take a break.
Oh, hold on just a moment. When we do send you off to figure those out, I know Supervisor Bohn had something he wanted to add. We could also take we can take like a 15 or 20 minute break, so that some people may want to eat lunch as well. So I'm just throwing that out there. We haven't decided yet. Supervisor Bohn?
Well, I'm sorry. I kind of missed. I don't like the tiered approach. I would like, just because I think it's confusing for staff and everything else. My favoritism and my motion is going to probably go to 90%. I threw the tier thing out there. If that was it, because Mike had brought it up, and I was trying to show a little respect in that, if that was a deal breaker or not. But I think it gets more confusing, because you got to understand that 50% or 75% is only 1% of the market. I mean, it's minuscule. If we go 90% across the board, and then it would be kind of ridiculous for me to go 0, my idea, because then I would like to be at 0, and go 90. So I'd like to go 90 across the board. I heard from both of you that you were willing to adjust. I threw the adjustment out there. You both said I'm willing to, and I'm trying to reach a compromise here, and we're getting a little bit, but I'm having to look at this, not this year, next year, because we've had no problem growing our budget at a rate of 25 to 50 million, 40 million a year. So I'm just wondering, a $3 or $4 million loss as we move forward, somewhere we can go, knowing that we've got, and I'm sorry, Alicia, I know you want to have this money. and in a new job, I'm not trying to short you in any way, but we do need to do some building improvements. We need to do a lot of stuff, but we're just coming off 40 million in ADA improvements that we aren't going to have going in. We still got some, but they're not going to be as extreme. I see some savings coming, not savings, but spending we don't have to do, because our ADO, we don't have the decree or anything, because our crew has done such a great job. So I think later on down the line there might be, and we're doing some energy savings. We're looking at those, thanks to Mike, pushing those. So we're not talking a huge amount. We're talking a big chunk of money. I don't want to say, hey, it's just but in the realm of things. But we are taking a large segment of that has paid 40 some odd million dollars to us, and property taxes and everything else. Because what we're going to do is, if we force these people out and they start selling their properties, and you can take a look how many are for sale, they're at reduced prices. Nobody's getting what they pay. A lot of them aren't getting what they paid for them. Some are still getting more because their parents owned the property and they can't keep it up. But I think in the long run, we're making, and if the state's looking, we put the green in the emerald. So I think it's showing that we came to something in 2016. We played market fluctuations into it, but nothing this extreme. So I'm basically changing to my whole motion would just be 90% instead of 0. Everything else stays if you really want to know, Nikki.
Okay, so we'll noodle on that one for a while. CAO Hayes and then Tabitha, CFO Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Just in framing the conversation in terms of the budgetary impacts, these are general fund discretionary dollars. So ADA does have some implications on the general fund, but a large majority of that is outside of the general fund. So those wouldn't be savings that can necessarily be tapped to close this specific gap. And same with Health and Human Services. The hiring freeze would be strictly imposed on the general funded departments who don't have other outside revenue sources that they can rely on. So that sort of closes the scope of that reach.
And Tabitha?
I quickly ran the numbers. So the 90%, 75%, 50% reduction with, again, assuming the 31% delinquency is $2.3 million in total revenue. And a 25% across the board, because we hadn't talked about that number, is a $3.4 million.
What about the 90-10 if you?
So the 90-10 split or the 90% across the board?
The 10% taxes, I think what she's asking.
Okay, yeah.
That would be, so it's going to leave 1.9, and then with the delinquency, it would be just a little under 1.4 million.
And then there could be those dollars from the marketing, which is not a huge amount, but still.
Yeah. So, and that would be I've calculated, including this year and next year's revenue, that would be about 1.64 million. So you'd add that amount to any of those other numbers.
Oh, so it'd be like a 3 point something then. No, 1, 2, yeah. Okay. Supervisor Wilson.
Wait, so are you saying that between the across the board 90% reduction versus the tiered 10, 25, 50, you're talking an almost $1 million difference between those two? Yeah. That's an interesting, that's where I would definitely still lean into that tiered approach, because again, those are the multi-turn endeavors that are really, and from lighting and all these other things, you're talking about kind of the most impactful from that perspective. So I think that's, and in terms of like actually making a difference and within our budget, I think and also from what I'm hearing in terms of the market, that the indoor and the mixed light is getting, higher prices for their the market fluctuation isn't as deep on that. That's just, again, we have very little real data to run off of here. So I'm just going on what people tell me, right? And so, which is it's a terrible way to do this. So, but nonetheless, it's a pretty big difference in terms of like what from a budgetary perspective. And I think part of this too is even with that minor amount of, it's not minor, I mean, it's a significant amount of money, but even with it's significantly less than what we've been than the industry has been able to really help provide into the community. It's just significantly less. I think one thing we're being asked by the industry is some better accountability on where the money is being spent, and maybe we need to really, I think we do a pretty good job of that. I saw the stuff, but I think we're just going to have to be better at really delineating that, and with only somewhere between 1.5 million and 2.5 million depending on how we kind of roll out of this thing, in terms of, and even if that's based on an assumption that farms survive, we're gonna we need some, I just want to make sure that we're letting people know where the money is getting spent, one way or another. So Rex, I see your hand up, so I'll let you go.
Well, and actually, before I go to Supervisor Bohn, I wanted to ask, I do see some department heads on, such as the tax collector, assessor, John Ford. Any of you want to add something, or are you here just to answer questions if they come your way? Okay, no one's saying anything. Oh. All right, we'll go back to Supervisor Bohn.
Well, I was just and I think fully aware that outdoor could be 2 or 3 turns. Be just so you were, when you're saying that, they could, most have gone, I think have gone to 2. I mean, I'm kind of naive, but I do know most of them will get, because most of them are in hoops. So they get 2 or 3 and they dep out. So when you talk about getting multiple, I'm just trying to get an even keel, easier on everybody across the board, so we don't have, and you can have people come in. You can have people coming in and say, well, this year I didn't go, I didn't dep this, I didn't use lights, I just depped. There's gonna be so many different things going on. And I that's why I support the 90 across the board. And that was a compromise that we can all, go with, and I think it shows the industry that we're trying to help them. It still gets me in a whole bunch of trouble with everybody else in my camp, but it won't be the first time. So it's long-term sustainability, because as we balance in these numbers, this will be 1.7, this will be 800. The big thing is if we don't get out of this, we're going to have to learn to live without this anyway. That's the real world. This may be the teething tool we need to gnaw on while and this may be the new normal, that we don't have any of this money. And I think that 10% will let them know that we're still here and it's going to come back the other way. So I took it from you guys that you guys wanted to do something. I threw the compromise out there, and so
the thing is,
thanks.
You got to get 3 somewhere, right? So
trust me, I know, and that's why I'm saying I wasn't going to get 3 at 0. And I heard that there was some compromise. I don't think there's any doubt on this board that we want to help this part of this industry into the future for long-term sustainability. I'm not saying anything that you guys aren't saying. I just hopefully not taking as long as I usually do. So we can battle, we can play ping pong with this all day long, and we're still going to end up. This is where I'm kind of stuck on. So,
well, we got to figure out. We can't all be stuck in the same place. At least someone's got to move. Supervisor Wilson, and then Madrone.
I was just going to point out that for whatever it is, whatever it's worth, from a whole different, I suppose, camp, you would say, I too, have folks not excited about this. So interestingly enough, I feel for the cannabis folks, that are really trying to, again, the callers that called in today are the ones that are really working the hardest to bridge that space and really make it right. And I think that we have to acknowledge that. So I'll let Supervisor Madrone see where he's at.
Supervisor Madrone.
Yeah, I was hoping Tabitha could also do some numbers on my suggestions. We got the numbers for everybody else. So my suggestion was using the tiered system, 50% on tier 1, 25% reduction on tier 2, and 0 on tier 3. What kind of revenue does that equate to? And then after that, what if we did 50% across the board? What does that equate to?
I can speak to that, Supervisor Madrone.
Great.
Those calculations are contained in today's staff report. So
Right.
a 50% cut across the board would bring in revenues of 6.9 million. A 50-25-0 would be 8.4 million. A 75-50-25 would be 5 million.
All right. Well, that's helpful. I appreciate that. And, normally in the spirit of compromise, what you do is you take two extremes and you find a place in the middle. And if we're going to edge our way down at 5% at a time, it'll take us a while to get to that place. Or we could recognize that I think Supervisor Bohn he wanted 100%, but was willing to satisfy and compromise 90% across the board. I'm willing to compromise at 40%. If I was a wise auctioneer, I'd say, I'll compromise at 10% across the board, and then we'll move slowly towards 50%, because that's where I'd like to end up. But we don't have to play that game. We could just go right to where we could see that it would provide substantial relief to all the farmers, not do it a tiered system, just do it across the board so that the administration is simple, but it still brings in substantial revenues to allow us to continue to staff up in all the departments so we can provide the services to our community. I mean, it's a real balancing act here, right? It's like the baby cutting it in two or something. It's crazy stuff. I'm just not willing to give up so much of the revenue, but I want to do something substantial to help the farmers, and in particular down the road. But I could land on 50% across the board. I could land there, but I'm not interested in doing, you said 50, I'm at 90, so let's go 80. It's like, no, I've already come from like 25 or so, so I'm coming a long way to come to 50. So that's what I could do, 50% across the board. And I think, again, on all those other issues, we're probably in pretty good agreement. So we just got to land on this final.
So Supervisor Madrone, I guess when I heard you talking earlier, when you said 75%, I thought you were referring to reduction. Now you're saying that wasn't it. You actually were thinking reduction of 25%. So I'm taking it.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's good to be clear. Apologies if I wasn't. That's why I went through that rigorous 2020 taxes, doing 2021, because it's really important we're really clear in the motion exactly what we're doing so that staff know what to do. And I think right now the wording of the motion is a little bit confusing, just for me at least it was. But yeah, 50% reduction across the board. That works either way. 50% reduction, 50% stays. Hey, either way you want to interpret it.
Okay, so we have the two, we've got County Council Billingsley.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought it'd be helpful. I don't believe that there was an amended motion to change to the 10%. I don't believe that was ever seconded. So I think that's the first issue we need to deal with.
Don't we need something we're trying to change it to? I think Rex was trying to see if there's something that we can work towards before actually doing that. But I mean, definitely before we do a motion, move forward, we'll have to have a motion if we kind of get closer. Because if we keep making motions for every, I guess we could do it that way. Supervisor Wilson? Oh, I thought you were reaching for the yellow button. Never mind.
I could. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where we're going to be and what the value is. I don't feel like I don't think 50% is where we're gonna get here today. That's just not gonna, I'm willing definitely to go below 50%, and as I've clearly denoted. Yeah.
Below 25% reduction or below 20, the 25%. We're talking about reduction.
Well, I was really coming into this space like I'm just saying like much below 25 is not really where I want to be necessarily, but I do understand just where we're at, and this is painful. And I really do appreciate Supervisor Bohn like understanding the sort of keep it going here in terms of like keeping everybody at the table and keeping things moving forward. And I know it seems maybe maybe not as, I guess, if maybe if we could get 4 votes to go 20, basically down to an 80% across the board reduction, then I think we could be somewhere where we're there. And I feel like if we could get Supervisor Madrone to that space, and then I think then we're going to be there. And so I'm hoping that if Supervisor Madrone is there and Supervisor Bohn is there, we could do an 80% reduction across the board on that one item where there's some disagreement. Then moving forward, I think we can, it's a good place to be. And then in a year, we can suss out where we're at.
Okay, so Supervisor Madrone and then Supervisor Bohn. There's been Supervisor Bohn. Madrone did have his hand up earlier, so but we'll definitely get your thoughts on that also. Did you have more you wanted to add, Supervisor Madrone? Okay, Supervisor Bohn.
Okay, now I'm confused because we were at, I understood that my fellow supervisors were at 25% tax, but they were both willing to compromise, and now one has gone to 50% and the one is still willing to compromise. So I got really confused. I don't know who's, and I don't know. I mean, if we were going to actually compromise, and I've watched American Pickers a few times, it would be 12.5%. I mean, I'm at 0, you're at 25, and everything else. I'll go on limb. I'll go 15%. You said 20. I'll go 15. And I feel like we're. But what I'm saying is I don't know where the 90, 80, and everything else, because I've never come close to that number, and nobody was ever at 100. So if we go 15 with everything stand, I will amend if the seconder appreciates, I will go to 15%. The same stands on 1 and 2 on the taxes that we said. I should be looking at Nikki to make sure she's getting this. But I will amend my 10%. The only thing I'll change is 10% to 15%. I understand where you're saying. My problem with 50% is I'm going to tell you, if they don't have it to pay, we might as well just nail the coffin up. I mean, Kohl's has 50% sales every weekend. So that makes me think that the markup's more than that. So I think we have to make a step up for the industry as a whole, which has provided so much for our economy and our budget over the last 3 years, and allowed us to do the largest raises we've given. I do not want to affect staffing. I don't know if it will. I mean, I mean that's always the first thing you say, because the earth's on fire. But I just think with the openings we have and the trouble that everybody's having staffing, we're going to be able to provide services. It's just going to be, albeit just a little bit like we have now. It's not going to change, but you'll have something else to blame it on. So I will amend mine to 15%. That's the only thing I'm changing. If the seconder is amicable to that, unless they want to stay at 10%, and I'll be fine with that too.
Well, I was fine at 85-15. We're moving in a general direction. I can be okay with that. But Supervisor Wilson, when you were saying 80, was that the 80% reduction or the, okay, so we're within 5, right? Is that about right? Wow, we can have a wrestling match over this, and arm wrestling. So, well, I guess Supervisor Bohn, your hand is still up, but I'm hearing that you're amending your motion to be the 15%. No.
15%, and if I can get the seconder to second, I'll call for the question.
Well, I think we should still really talk about it. But yeah, I mean, I said I'd be fine seconding it. I just want clarity in what it is that we are actually voting on. So I'd like to ask Nikki if she would like to share with us what she believes we are actually potentially voting on. Oh, and CAO Hayes.
I can help with that, Nikki, if you need.
Go ahead, Alicia, and then questions I'll ask.
March 2021 taxes are currently due and incurring penalties if not yet paid. October 2021 taxes will be suspended through September 15th without additional penalties. 2022 taxes, March and October installments, would be 15%. And and 2023 taxes will be reevaluated in October of 2022.
Supervisor Wilson.
Yes, a quick question. So under that language, that's not a permanent reduction then, right? It's just, okay, just want to make sure, because otherwise.
Good point. And yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, well, hold on. We have everyone's like screens are flying all over. Supervisor Madrone.
Yeah, you use the word, Alicia, suspend the tax. I think what you mean is defer. I understand what you meant, but just to use clear language, I think you're saying that the October 2021 tax that had been extended till May would now be due September 15th. So we're just deferring the payment with no penalties. We're not suspending it. Yeah, that's good.
And similar to the same language, and County Council Billingsley might need to pop on to this. I think the motion language would be that you are suspending 85% of the 2022 tax.
Right, and so I just want to say, I know for the farmers, they'd like us to do 100%, but that's looking at it from their perspective. And what we as a board have to do is look at the entire county perspective. I'm not just looking at one industry. My job is to try and balance all of these issues and make the best decision for the county as a whole. And while there aren't anybody calling in and speaking on this in opposition to us doing anything, I think it's been clearly stated by every supervisor that we are getting lots of phone calls and lots of emails from people that are in absolute opposition to us giving any break whatsoever. I firmly believe that a lot of that attitude has to do with not understanding the difficulties that the cannabis industry has in terms of all of what's been laid upon them as a burden. It also fails to understand that if we don't do something, we could easily lose all of this revenue. And that's an important consideration, right? So, that's what I'm trying to do. And I know the rest of the board is doing this as well. We're all trying to balance what can we do for this industry in the short term while also still trying to take care of the whole county. And that's not being a profit monger or only thinking about money or whatever. It's really thinking about the business of the county and what it's going to take for us to do that. And I said it before, we're trying to turn the corner on increasing staffing so we can provide better services, whether that's potholes on your roads or whether that's getting permits processed sooner, or whether that's getting mental health, behavioral health assistance, whatever it might be. Those things don't happen without revenues. So what we're trying to do is find that sweet spot where we maintain our revenues as best as we can without causing the industry to completely collapse, but with the recognition that no matter what we do at the county, and we have done a lot of things, I know in the last 3 years, we've done many things to aid this industry. Like I said before, moving the tax out a year, et cetera. We all hope that by doing something that's significant, we can maintain, especially as Supervisor Wilson said, the really responsible regenerative farmers that are out there in the community, and many of them called in last week as well as today. But not all the farms are that way, as we well know. So at any rate, I'm just trying to find that place where we can maintain revenues and maintain staffing and services and hopefully improve services while also providing appropriate support to the industry. And I think that's what we're all trying to balance here. And frankly, that's not an easy job to do. Anybody who thinks this is easy to make these kinds of decisions, it just simply is not.
Supervisor Wilson?
I support the motion. Yeah, let's move forward.
All right. So, Supervisor Madrone, your hand is still up. Do you want?
Well, I think 85 is too much, but it sounds like there's 3 votes for that.
All right, well, we'll soon find out. And I did actually, sorry to do this beforehand. I did want to ask Alicia, there's some concerns, that I didn't ask about the marketing dollars. And I think, part of where I was coming from was that, well, there's an association. What about the folks who aren't in the association? Is there a way that whatever, I mean, I would really hope that the association would still support those who may not be part of their membership, because it makes the entire group stronger. But I wanted to ask your thoughts on that, or if that's maybe a conversation we could need another time.
Well, I mean, we don't influence what the association does with their budgets and their desires for supporting the cannabis communities. So I wouldn't even begin to guess what actions they might take. But it would be helpful for your board to have the motion clarified if you would like to move the marketing dollars back to the general fund or for some other purpose, so that we can memorialize that and bring back an item to effectuate that.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't know, maybe this was something we should bring back later, or did you want that in?
It just gains your guidance and gives us direction in moving forward. When we return following today's order, we'll come with a resolution back to your board to finalize the actions in today's direction. And with that, we will also bring back recommendations regarding budgetary updates.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Wilson?
Yeah, I would recommend that we just ask staff to bring back the item specifically, because I'm not sure we're going to get. I wouldn't want to load this particular item anymore as it is in the current context. And I mean, like I really was thinking, well, we should really have another letter to the state, reiterating our concern about the taxation at the state level. And I think that's reasonable, and we should probably do that. But I'm not sure if I need that. We've been continuing in that regard through our lobbyists to do that. I want to assure that all the folks that are listening, there's definitely conversation and efforts at that level. But we could point out, if they weren't watching, that we're likely to have an 85% reduction in our cannabis tax today, and we're asking the state, see that, and that we're responding to this market situation, and that they think about doing in kind as well. So,
okay, thank you, Supervisor Bohn.
Well, and I think that's not in my motion, marketing or anything else, because I think that will come back to us when we have a full complement of board members and a full a full discussion, which is only fair. And so I think that's fine, and it's not in my motion.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure it's clarified. All right, so Nikki, would you like to read the motion before we do vote?
The final motion. Let's see. I have defer the October 2021 tax to be due September 15th with no penalties. The first payment, which was due in March for the 2021 Measure S tax, can be paid through the 15th of September, however, will incur penalties until paid. The 2022 Measure S taxes will be reduced by 85% across the board. Is that correct? And then the 2023 taxes will be revisited.
Thank you. Supervisor Bohn, is that a reasonable facsimile of what you were saying?
As close as I can get without, where everybody went has me all confused. So yes, let's go with that.
Thank you. Supervisor Madrone? Your microphone's off.
It's fine.
Yeah. So Supervisor Bohn also had in his initial motion directing staff to work on tax incentives. I'd either like to see that stay in the motion or come back with a separate motion. It's in our staff report. At the end of the staff report, it talks about how we've had these discussions before. We directed staff to come back to us with a program on how that would look. It never happened. In the staff report, it talks about it was waylaid by COVID and other matters. So is that still in the motion, or are we going to do that as a separate item, Supervisor Bohn? What would your preference be?
In all honesty, I would rather bring that back because we already have it on the books to operate on. So the redundancy runs rampant here, but when we catch it up front, I don't know if we need to be redundant. So, I mean, there's a few other things added, regenerative and everything else, but basically all warm and fuzzy things, good for the environment. We'll just bunch that all together and we'll sit down with John Ford and figure how we can do that. Because I mean, there's many ways. Right now, most of these can't be initiated because we're fighting over them paying their taxes. So I don't think they're going to be, so it's already in I think back from 2016, 17. So I think we can run with that and basically implement what we've already said we can do without all the other distractions, maybe.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that clarification. And I agree. It was already a motion and a direction by the board. And so that just really helped clarify for staff, I think, that we're still interested in that. And we'd love to see that come back with some detailed discussion in the future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor Madrone and Bohn. Nikki, I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay, let's go. Supervisor Bohn?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
No.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-1, sorry.
All right. Well, this has been quite the morning and partial afternoon, so appreciate everybody for being here today. And we will be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. So yeah, everyone adjourn for now. We'll be back tomorrow.